call this meeting to order, and our first thing on our agenda is a public hearing. And for anyone here to speak to this, they'll be allowed to get up. Our first item on that public hearing agenda is an ordinance annexing the town's Persimmon Ridge water reservoir property. Anyone here to talk about that exciting project down there? All right, that's just a little area inside of our town we've actually never annexed, so we're going to bring it actually into the city limits. Next item on the agenda for the public hearing is an ordinance annexing 13.8 acres of property along Anderson Road and the plan of services. Anyone here to talk about that? All right, very good. That's going to be an exciting thing for our town. With that, I'll close our public hearing and go to our regular meeting. Our first item on that is our opening prayer. Have Vice Mayor Dixon lead that for us.
Let us all pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for this another day that you've allowed us to see. God, we thank you for the health and the strength that you provide day by day. We thank you for keeping us in your care. We thank you for all of your wonderful blessings. We thank you for Scripture that tells us that how good it is and how perfect it is and great it is for brothers and sisters to dwell together in unity. And we thank you for this community in which we live. We thank you for the harmony that you have provided here. Thank you for this board and how this board works together and wants to work together for the greater good of the community. We ask, Lord, that you guide our deliberations, that everything will be to your glory. Ask it in your name, Lord, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Ruth, do you have anyone here for the pledge, please? All right, we got the best. Ruth.
Please face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ruth. Madam Recorder, roll call, please.
Mayor Best.
Here.
Alderman Callahan.
Here.
Alderman Causey.
Here.
Alderman Termine.
Here.
Alderman Dixon.
Here.
All right, we're all present and accounted for. Again, welcome everyone here to our meeting. We've got a great agenda, some important things and exciting things to talk about and decide on. First items we're going to talk about is our consent agenda. Alderman, is there anything on there anyone wants to pull out and discuss?
7C.
7C.
7B.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we'll remove the 7C and 7D. I don't need a vote for that, do I, Jim?
No, sir.
All right, so I'll take a motion to approve our consent agenda minus 7C and D.
So moved.
Got a motion from Alderman Callahan,
Second.
second from Alderman Causey. I'll say one thing before we approve that. In that consent agenda, we want to welcome Deidre Oliver to our team. We're going to be approving hiring her. She's going to be a new dispatcher in our public safety department, so welcome to her. And also, I thought something that was really nice in there is that we're going to be doing some construction up at our senior center, making that great facility a little bit better. So that's good to see. All right, we've got a motion and a second. Call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Termine.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
All right, motion carried. Next item on our agenda is our financial report. Alderman, do y'all have any comments about our financial report? I'll have one or two. Okay. I always like talking about sales tax collections, and here in Jonesborough they're really important. They're really important to Johnson City and all the other cities. And with everything going on, I've been in retail a long time, and retail is where you generate your sales tax, and it's a struggle in a lot of cities. And even more so for the ones who have lost hotel tax and really your upper scale restaurants, the tax losses that the municipalities are incurring there are pretty large. But one thing that's something here in Jonesborough, we've weathered that storm. I mean, we're coming out pretty strong so far, and I really foresee the next couple of months continue to be really bright spots in sales tax. We'd love to have more sales tax, but we are on the plus side pretty healthy right now. So our residents can feel good about that. And one other thing that Abby always gets ready for is our collection of property taxes. And there's a little note I made about our property taxes. That's really, we generate a lot from that area. It's probably more important really than sales tax when you come down to it. Really, in 2018, we collected or billed out about $1.8 million in property taxes. And I think for 2019, Abby, correct me if I'm wrong, we billed out close to $2 million. So we've had about a $200,000 increase in property taxes. And I think that's why, Jonesborough for the last couple of years been on a really positive trend. And I think it's going to continue at least another year or two unless we keep having these little issues pop up. But it's a great sign for our town. Really appreciate the residents. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have the property taxes and the sales taxes to do the work of the town. Alderman, got anything else on that? Abby, there was some other good news about our financial report. If you owned a home and you paid off your home, you would do like a little mortgage burning, your last payment, We don't have a last payment, we still got a locked one, so we're not that far along yet. But we had some really good news here recently. Abby wrote a pretty big check to be the last payment out of our water area. Abby, do you want to talk about that? It's about a, $750,000 payment that we have been making, and she paid her last one. Would you mind telling us what that means for the town of Jonesborough?
Well, we can start setting that money aside for other things other than paying that bond payment every year. For instance, we can pay cash for equipment or for bigger projects we work on, and will help us where we don't have to borrow the money every time we have a project or need to buy a big piece of equipment.
Absolutely. So our town can be really proud of that, and that's really how we've been operating for a long time, is try to get to the point where we can pay cash when it makes sense. Sometimes the interest rates are so low it doesn't make a lot of sense. You just keep your cash there to preserve it. But great news to get rid of a payment so large. Really gives Abby some breathing room in there, I think. She might even stick around a lot longer now. All right, if there's no comments on our financial report, I'll take a motion to approve it.
Move to approve, Mayor. Second.
Motion to approve from Alderman Dixon, second from Alderman Countermine. Any discussion? All right, call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
Alderman Turner.
Aye.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Toss.
All right, very good. That's probably the best financial report I think I've heard in a long time, so it's a good feeling. All right, now I get the opportunity to communications from the mayor, a few things in here that we'll go over.
I think we check those out. We're going to go back and discuss the ones we pulled.
Oh, yep, good idea. All right, we'll go back to that consent agenda. There's a couple of things in there we're pulling out. Thank you, Stephen.
How you doing?
First one we're going to go back and discuss is our 7C, appointment of summer intern for our water distribution department. Virginia, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, I talked to Craig Ford today about it. We had contracted with GRW working on this, on the GIS for the water lines and stuff, and he has decided that he would meet back with them, and we can let him address it. He probably could explain it much better than I can.
All right, Craig.
First and foremost, Mayor, I had in the background information on this agenda presentation that it was obviously to the 2021 budget year. I failed to transfer that on down to the recommendation. Obviously, that 30,000 they was talking about sitting aside has not been done at this point anyway. So, had the board approved that tonight, it would have been contingent upon the 2021 budget year anyway. So, I apologize. That was certainly my fault. But basically, there was a meeting, in Knoxville, well, I want to say the latter part of January, 1st of February, maybe, with the former distribution director, the current distribution director, and Bob with GRW. And we have an old CAD mapping system that a lot of our water line is on, but it has not been kept up very well in some time. So a year or so ago, Coburn Rasnick, the wastewater treatment plant director, purchased a new software system that allows GIS mapping of the sewer system, and so we wanted to do that as well for our water system. That's a much, much larger system. We actually hired an individual to help start that process, but when Mr. Rosenoff and I met with the new director, he said, we're looking at probably 6 to 8 years to get that done, and so then he brought up to the distribution director, what about using some interns? In the meantime, they had this meeting in Knoxville, and it was my understanding that for almost $30,000 that they could convert our OCAD system over to the new system that we have. However, it's my understanding from the gentleman with GRW who said there's no way they can guarantee that when they make that transfer that those water lines were going to be anywhere close to what they needed to be. In addition to that, on our current CAD, we do not have our fire hydrants, nor our flush valves, nor our shutoff valves on that CAD system anyway, which really needs to be on that GIS system. I know last week, as an example, we had a rather large water line break with the underground boring that they're doing over here, and it took distribution about 10 minutes to find that shutoff valve to shut that water down. So since this is really contingent upon funding in the 2021 budget year, in talking with Alderman Causey today, I told her I did not mind a bit to reach back out to Jim with GRW and just have that conversation again, and then the board could decide from that which they feel is the best way to go. I still say in the end we would still need to look at those interns, because we got a tremendous amount of shutoff valves, flush valves, probably 600 to 700 fire hydrants inside and outside the city limits on the system that still need to be GPS to be able to put it on that system. The idea is hopefully the end result is that when our staff that are on call has to respond to a water line break or some other kind of problem within the system, they've got a tough book or a notebook with them. They can pull that up, see what the closest shutoff valve is. Our fire department, when they're responding to a fire call, can see where the closest fire hydrant is. So that's a huge benefit to the system, and we would be able to get the interns through ETSU's internship program. So I would really recommend maybe that we table this to next board meeting. That'll give me a little bit more of an opportunity, or even Mr. Rosenoff, if he feels more comfortable, talking this back out some with the GRW, and then come back to the board, because again, it would have been contingent upon the 2021 budget year anyway.
Well, it certainly sounds like something we need to do. What you're talking about, the quicker we can respond and correct a water issue or fire issue, it's going to save time, which saves money. So it sounds like certainly something we will be doing. Virginia, what's your thought there?
Sounds good.
Okay, just want to defer this.
Yes.
Okay, we'll defer this to our next meeting, so we'll just remove that off of there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, 7D was our next one. Terry?
Well, when I read it, I was a little confused, because section 8 said that the town will not provide disability, health, or life and I looked more closely, we're given a stipend. And let me say 3 times, I am not opposed to the stipend for Bob. Bob, Jimmy Neal Smith, and Bill Kennedy are the 3 people that I look at as helping to make this town what it is. And Bob has done, he's got his fingerprints on literally everything. However, I don't know if we have a policy. I think there have been other people through the time I've been on the board who have gone part-time, and I'm not aware that they were given a stipend for health insurance. And I'm not sure how many part-time, or if we have part-time now, but I don't think I'm a big, let's be consistent. If we're going to provide part-time people with a stipend, then we should provide them all with a stipend, not just one. Because and again, I repeat, Bob, I consider one of my best friends, that I admire him for what he's done, but I don't think it's right for him to get a stipend and other people that are part-time not to get a stipend, and we should have a policy on it. If we're going to give someone that works 18 hours or more a stipend to help them with their health insurance, then we should be consistent. That's the problem I have. And I say one more time, I hope Bob's listening. Bob, this is not about you. I don't have a problem with the stipend, but I do have a problem you getting it and nobody else. So that's how I feel. I don't know whether Jim.
We'll let Jim speak to that. I got my opinion. We'll let Jim speak to it.
But I was the one that sat down with Bob and worked on this to a large degree. The salary that Bob proposed was the $60,000. That was roughly half of what, a little bit more than half, but not much more, than half of what both the JRT board chairman had expected and what the mayor and I had expected. Because if he's worked, essentially be working full time. I know this calls for 18 hours, but nobody expects Bob to work less than a full day and more as he has in the past. But because of that, when the request was made for the additional stipend, it was well taken by all of those of us that were involved in those discussions. I think this is a little bit different than this is not a part-time employee, just an hourly employee. This is a professional services contract, and I think there's a distinction there. Just like your contract with the town administrator is a professional services contract, your contract with me is a professional services contract. That's what this is. So that's sort of the background of where that came from. I think, I can't speak for Mr. Browning as far as how he would feel on that. It was requested, and we did think it was very reasonable given the salary that was being set for that. The hours are simply the ones that are in the contract are based on what his contract needed to say for the purposes of Social Security. And that's all. But I don't think anybody was expecting that he would only be here 18 hours or be working 18 hours a week. Excuse me. So that's the background on it. But whatever you all choose to do, we'll take it back to Mr. Brown.
So, have we done anything like this before? Do we have anybody part-time that's not hourly?
It's not hourly.
I mean, that isn't paid by the hour, that has a salary and that are part-time?
We have several part-time.
So how is that different?
This is go ahead, Jim.
But again, it's a professional services contract. It's just like you could have handled this on the 1099, as a contract employee. It was recommended and suggested by town staff that it would be probably better for him if he didn't have to, and he definitely agreed if he was not done that way, so he didn't have to pay self-employment tax and calculate all that in full of that. So it is entirely up to you.
How
You
come we
have
didn't
the
just build it
authority
into
to
the
do it
salary?
differently. I'm sorry?
How come we didn't just build it into the salary?
The salary had already been set. We have an agreement with The Sonia King Trust, they're gonna make a contribution for half, so we left the salary where their contribution is gonna be, actually, they're gonna contribute 30,000, that was to go to it. It was based on what we were talking about as half. If you want to include it in the salary, unless there's some, I don't know if there are tax reasons why it's better for him to be listed as stipend or not. I'm not qualified to answer that question. The recorder may be able to answer that, but and from a legal standpoint, it would make no difference if you just incorporated it into the salary.
Can I say that
That's
for employees who provide or have health insurance coverage, say with their spouse, and they can prove that, we pay them $200 a month, and they get a 1099 on that. We don't build it into their salary they have to pay the tax on that $200 a month. So to me, it's no different from that. And if we do that for Mr. Browning, then the employees are gonna say, just bill mine into the salary, y'all pay the federal tax on it, you withhold on it, and I'm better off. But that's based on what our accountants tell us, our auditors, that that's a separate, apart from the salary. That's why you do that.
an example of where you've made an exception to your insurance policy in a contract is when my current contract was negotiated, where if I went on the health insurance, I would pay the full premium. Now that's different than your policy, but it was considered fair in both sides, and so that's what we negotiated. It is different than your policy.
Did you do that?
I'm sorry?
Did you do that?
I'm not on it, but it's an option that if I go on it, I would pay the full premium rather than the town paying part of the premium. But in the past, my contract has said it would be the same as other employees, but I'm just giving that as an example of where you have deviated from your policy because of the contract you were negotiating. And I think that's, again, I don't think there would be anything, again, you have the authority as a board to deviate from that if you choose to, and you have done that, at least in that one instance in the past. And you could do, I think it's also important to keep in mind that if you were negotiating this contract with a new town administrator or a new operations manager, that you might choose to sweeten the pot or do something where you might add to their benefit. Or if they're asking for something else in another area, you might choose to do something similar to what you did with mine and to say that's you need to pay the full premium. Which, again, that was sort of a trade-off with mine with the retirement.
But the difference
Which
in
we're not.
yours and what is being proposed here is you would be paying full price, you're out of your pocket.
Right.
This is the town paying for the insurance.
It's still a
In lieu of
deviation.
salary.
Actually, not paying for insurance, paying a stipend that he can use to insurance, but
It says 4 insurance premiums
well, he's not,
in the contract.
I understand, but we're not paying the premium though. We're paying him the dollars. If he uses it for something else, that's not a concern to the town, a legal concern at least. But it's again, it's up to you all if you decide you want to increase the salary by that amount. I can't speak for Mr. Browning. We can take it back to him.
Well, let me say, give people some background on what we're talking about here. But this all revolves really around the conversation that started with our school project for Jonesborough. When we were going through looking to see, can we build a school, for less money? Where can we, save? A lot of those savings we recognize were in professional services. One is the cost that the county incurred at Boones Creek for project manager type positions. And most of those positions were well over $120,000. And when you added them all up, it's a lot of money. And we had the opportunity with Bob's expertise to really help us in many areas getting grants for different parts of that project, and really to help us finish the Jackson Theater and our Lincoln Park. There was a lot of things that Bob could help us with. And instead of us spending, in the county, spending a ton of money for project managers who will do the same thing or less probably than what Bob can do for us, we thought if Bob could stay on in a part-time capacity and work on the Jackson Theater, work on our school project and focus on those, would really allow us to excel in those two areas. And he's also, for whatever reason, he wanted to finish up the Lincoln Park up there. I thought we could quite handle that ourselves, but he wanted to finish the park up by our senior center. And really, from looking at what we would be paying someone else to have Bob's expertise for half that, and actually half of half, because he's working on the Jackson Theater project. There's some money there from the Sonia King Trust that they were willing to pay half of what we're paying Bob. So really, it's only costing the town about $30,000, whereas we could be incurring, in the hundreds of thousands. So there's tons of savings here. And Bob and I talked, and he loved the town of Jonesborough, and believe me, for what the kind of work he's doing, the town of Jonesborough could be paying a whole lot more. And as Jim said, some of the initial thoughts that what we would be looking at, Bob was a lot more humble and less than what we thought might cost us. So really, you're talking about $30,000. As Abby said, the way this is, the $260 is really, it's a benefit for the town of Jonesborough, if I'm not mistaken. Is that what you said, Abby? It's better for us to pay that directly to Bob than have to. So it's a little bit of a benefit for the town to kind of have it paid out that way. And again, the big thing is here, it's.
Would it be bad to build it into the? Better for the town.
So there's advantages for it to be done this way, and like I said, we're saving a ton here. And the whole 18 hours, one of my concerns with Bob, he's retiring, and he's a workaholic. He would live back in that room if we'd let him. He asked his wife. And my concern is Bob was going to work too much. And for what we're going to be paying him and for what kind of work he's going to be done, we want him fresh. So he will not work what this says. If he can work that and get the work done, then yes, that's great, because we need him fresh all the time. And that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I agree. I'd rather pay him more money than he's worth, but I'm more worried about the perception by anybody that would look at this.
If we do a contract
Knowing
on
that in many people's eyes, it doesn't look consistent.
this is entirely different. I
Not
think
knowing the legal things that you know. So, but I'm not against it, and I say that for the 4th time.
I'm not against it either, but
I
I understand what
just-
Terry's saying, because being a former employee, I know how it feels whenever you see something for one and you don't get it for the other. It does set a precedent that is hard to not follow if we end up with another situation like that. And you're comparing him to Boones Creek. Boones Creek people was full-time, Bob's 18 hours.
Yeah, and it's $30,000. There's a difference,
Yeah.
and we keep talking about
Difference in
town.
100,000 for 40 hours versus 60,000 for 18.
Town staff will be town employees paid hourly, whereas this is a contract employee, much like any other company. Or a contract employee, within a contract, you negotiate things. Most of the part-timers we have working here now are town employees on an hourly rate, so it's entirely different.
Well, with all that said, I think it was something that the public should
Yeah, it's good.
be aware of, and with that, I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
All right, very good. Thank you, Terry. Anybody got anything else? We got a motion to approve from Alderman Countermine, a second from Alderman Causey. Adam, Stephen, got anything to say?
Good to go, sir.
All right, very good. Madam Reporter, call for the vote, please.
Alderman Kellerman.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
All right, very good. We got Bob under contract. I'm gonna let him go. I'm just gonna jump back on something here real quick. I'll talk about our financial position. Don't let everybody think it's all rosy. One thing, if you look through our budget, and we're getting ready to go into our budget for the next year, is, the worst part of this coronavirus pandemic is that we've not had any classes. A lot of the funds that our McKinney Center, the Visitor Center, and all that, they get them through rentals and stuff. So they've been a lot of revenue loss that we can't make up there. We've been fortunate. We've been achieving some good things outside of that, but we have lost a lot of revenue in some of those other activities. All right, we'll get into my little part here. I want to first We'll do our employee of the month first, and this is probably the fourth one, I think. So we're going to do like a big celebration here where we can get everybody together and do our employee of the month properly. But these guys still get recognized, and I think there's a little bit of a financial benefit. I think about $50 or something. $250 for being employee of the month. All right. Well, see, Bob can't win that, so that's a plus. All right. I would like to nominate Ralph Butch Kiefer for the distinction of Employee of the Month for June 2020. Butch is an integral part of our street department family and is a team player, provides the town a great service and a lot of heart on every project he's involved with. Butch brings a positive, can-do spirit with him to work each and every day. It has been said that one bad apple can spoil the whole bunch. I think it could also be correctly stated that a strong, positive mindset sometimes is able to lift the spirit of the whole bunch as well. That was from Malcolm, his supervisor. Butch's infectious positivity does just that, always looking for work challenges as an opportunity for success and learning. Butch brings much more of a positive mindset to work with him each and every day than we can account for. Butch is an accomplished equipment operator, a grade A mechanic, CDL truck driver, and has shown excellent ability in interpreting grading and drainage site work. And all those skills are very important to give us the flexibility in an important area. Butch follows directions to the letter and is always available to help on emergency calls during nights and weekends, and always brings that can-do mentality with him. Much of the success of a project is dependent on that mindset the crew is working on. For these reasons, I nominate Butch Kiefer, who deserves the honor of Employee of the Month. Now with Malcolm Highsmith, so we'll make sure Butch gets his award, and we'll have him back in here for a little photo day here soon. Just make sure we see him on the streets, we tell him thank you. I want to touch on a couple of things that Craig had in his operations report. You know, we talked a little bit about Lincoln Park up by our senior center. We named that our last meeting. Some good news up there. We're making good progress. The weather, I think, got to where we could operate a little bit better. And we've got all the new utilities now underground. Looks like we're going to start hauling in some topsoil soon, and get our plants in the ground here in a couple of weeks. So it sounds like we're making good progress in that area, and should be starting on the pavilion pretty soon. Is that right, Vic?
Yes, sir.
So great job by our workforce on keeping that project going. We got I want to say the $250,000 grant, I think, $500,000 grant for that, and so that's where Bob's ability pays off, right there. All right. I always like these. Got a nice little thank you card on my desk in there a couple of days ago. This was something that was sent out in May, and this is for everyone. It says, "Dear Mayor and Administration, thank you so much for all the support given to the students of David Crockett High School. I can't express how much Saturday's parade, graduation parade, meant to our family and the family of the 2020 graduates. The support and display of the support by the fire department and the police department brought tears to our eyes. The character of your leadership speaks, the character of the town of Jonesborough speaks, and is appreciated. We had family from out of town, and the conversation at the table at lunch was the town of Jonesborough. You blessed our hearts. Thank you." That's the family of Adam Daniels. Pam Daniels wrote that. We thank Pam for that. She's a valuable part to our town here. Super. So we'll keep that. I also had another little thank you here. Love reading this one too. It's from Karen Wheeler with the Washington County Department of Education. This was to Major Matt Rice in our police department. "I would like to express my sincere thanks on behalf of the employees and students at Midway for all." Is Midway in our city limits? No, it isn't. So, "for all of the support you and the Jonesborough Fire Department or Police Department have provided to our students this year. I thought you might like to see the most graduating seniors you provided senior supplies for." She sent along a picture of the seniors there at Midway School that Matt and folks helped. So we appreciate our police department and all our officers for all they do for the community. All right, just as Pam talked about that, the David Crockett High School caravan, I appreciate everybody that they pitched in to help there. It was a great little event. We also had a good event with the Black Lives Matter caravan that came through on June the 2nd, I think. And myself and Terry and Stephen, and I think Virginia was there as well. Watched the caravan come down Main Street. It was just great to see people waving and smiling. It's the way a caravan should be. So thanks to the ones that led that. I think Caitlin Yarborough, one of our residents here, was really involved in that. So I appreciate it. A couple other little quick things handed out there. I always like reading where Jonesborough was recognized as one of the top 15 small towns in the U.S. for fast internet for remote workers. So if you find out why our property taxes went up and we collected $200,000 more, stuff like that, where they've got investment in internet service, people want to come here and live. They can work from home. So good for the town of Jonesborough. All right, I think that's all I've got. Next thing is Alderman communications. Alderman, you got anything that you'd like to speak about?
I'd just like to say one thing back on Bob. Bob Browning was a mentor for me whenever I first got the position that I had as executive secretary back then. He is a fantastic person. He works very, very hard. He never works just 40 hours. I just don't want anyone to think that I was against him. I just didn't want to set a precedent for the next person coming behind him. And I know we've got a lot on our agenda tonight, and we're gonna make some enemies, we're gonna make some happy people. And I just wanted to know, I'm talking from my heart whenever I make a decision.
All right, very good. Thank you, Virginia. Stephen?
Yeah, I'm good, Chuck. I just want to say, give a shout out to the police and fire for, when we had the caravan came through town the other day, everything went really smooth and nobody got out of line. It was just it was a great event, and that's how things like that are supposed to happen. And to see that in our hometown, it makes me proud. I think we as Jonesborough set an example for a lot of people and towns in this area, and we should be proud. So thank you guys for making that happen.
Thank you, Stephen. Now, didn't you have a little issue with the firemen at your place?
Yeah, my ACU. And they did a great job. So thanks for saving the facility.
Yeah, we don't need to lose any more tax producers, so you keep that thing at the fire. Adam, Terry?
Yeah, I would like to, again, the public safety and the police department, the job you did on June 2nd, I was there, and I think this is a chance for the town of Jonesborough and our police department to really step up and be even more of an example. I'd like to see us as a town come up with some kind of a resolution, because as I was sitting with Chuck on the bench watching the caravan, I asked him, had he read the editorial that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, some of you will know, he's one of the greatest basketball players of all time. He's now a writer and an activist, and he wrote an article that really touched me, and I shared it with Chuck, and then I noticed later that he shared it again. And I think it would be worth all of us hearing. He said that he compared racism with dust. He said if you look around the room now, and wherever you are, if you're watching, you don't see any dust. But if sun shines through, or you get a bright flashlight, all of a sudden there's a lot of dust. And racism is like that. We don't see it. As we sat there, we said, do we have a racism problem in Jonesborough? We don't see it, but it's there. And I think if you had to ask Adam or other people of color, they see it every day. And so the concept of protesting and being a leader, I mean, this country was founded on protest. That's what the Boston Tea Party was. And for us not to recognize that it exists is wrong. I know I'm going to try to change. And I would like to recommend that Alderman Dixon, representing the Board of Mayor and Alderman, and Glenn, representing the town, and Chief, you representing the police department, would be for our next meeting to just come up with some kind of a resolution or something that shows that we as a town of Jonesborough want to do better and want to set an example.
Thank you, Terry. I had a conversation with somebody today, and I was talking about, here in Jonesborough, I think, a little bit different growing up here in a small town. For as long as I can remember, been as small as I can, I've always played on a sports team, and you played with people of all races. And I said, I said, what this country needs is more sports. I said, because you play on a team, it don't matter what race they are. You want that person to do well. They want you to do well. When they mess up, you help them, and you pat them on the back, say, hey, let's go. And that's kind of what we need, I think. It's probably why sometimes I've had rose-colored glasses on, because I grew up with Jerome Fitzgerald and Lionel Carpenter and Herbie Purtle, and playing ball with guys like that. You just didn't even think about stuff like that. I don't know how many times I went to play baseball with Terry Scott, one of the greatest baseball players ever played in this area. Went to play for the Boston Red Sox, coaches baseball. I think he was coach of the year in this league that he was in up in the Northeast. But Terry, I could tell you some stories about some times we went out and played ball during the summer with my father, and with some. Probably shouldn't have. We beat a lot of people, but we also did some things when we wasn't playing we probably shouldn't have done.
Do we need a motion to do that, to have that? I mean, I don't think we do.
No, that'll work.
Would you, Adam, would you, any more than that? Glenn?
Absolutely.
Chief?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Dixon.
Mayor, I sit here chuckling. You say that we need more sports, and I think about the fact I think I'm the only black man in America that can't play football. So that would be a bad situation to me. But I am grateful that we've had those experiences, in our time, and so you don't know how refreshing it is to see folks like Terry and many others approach you and make it known that in the horror of Minneapolis, they see the need to build bridges and they see the need to move forward. In life, when you know there's a reality, you can either decide to be bitter, frustrated, ugly, or you can see the glass half full and persevere and strive forward. I've chosen to persevere and strive forward. That's just been my particular choice. But as Alderman Countermine said, it's there, it's evident, it's real, it's in your face, and so you just again choose to persevere in spite of it all. But I appreciate this board. I'm glad that this board was at the caravan and participated in that activity. I was working that evening, could not be there, but again, very glad that the board was in attendance. And I appreciate Alderman Countermine for proposing the resolution, because I'm a huge believer that inaction always leads to a negative reaction. And so when we can be proactive, fresh eyes, I think that we kind of, again, we set the standard. And so that excites me. So thank you all very much for your support. I appreciate that.
All right, thank you, Alderman. Okay, certainly a trying time in our country, and then here in Jonesborough at a local level, but it's always say prayers for our country. I'll say this, it's probably better to talk about this while we're on the subject. Soon after we saw that horrific, lack of a better word, murder in Minnesota, one of my first earlier calls was to Director Ford to talk about what happened there, and he said some things that really put me at ease about really our town, but really for our state of Tennessee as well, because when you saw what happened there, it was easy to say, there's no reason in the world that should have ever been acceptable. And you hear, whether it's true or not, that technique was something that was trained. Certainly wasn't trained to be exactly like that, but any type of pressure on the neck, I think had been taught up there at one point. And I asked Mr. Ford about that, and the good thing about the state of Tennessee, I think he says here, this technique is not trained in the state of Tennessee, nor is it acceptable practice. Several years ago, the state of Tennessee made the use of vascular neck restraint or chokehold an unacceptable and unlawful restraint in all Tennessee law enforcement officers. I think if more states had that exact same policy, that probably wouldn't have happened right there. But you know, it was something like that's shouldn't be happening in the United States. But again, I appreciate Craig's time talking with me about some of those things, and really, I feel great about our public safety department. And if there's anything that, you know, as a board and as a public safety group, we think we can get better at, we'll do it. All right.
And Craig, if you want to be part of that committee, I would appreciate it too.
That's fine, sir.
Okay. Next thing is town attorney comments, and I'll say one thing about our town attorney. He's also keeping the microphone clean tonight. So, yes, he'll be doing that. We get our money's worth out of our people, just like Bob Rowdy and Jim Wheeler. Jim, what you got to say for us?
Mayor, it's been a busy month with with several things, including the school project. But one thing that I will bring to your attention tonight, we got some really good news today. I got an email late this afternoon from our Raymond James consultant in Kentucky that was forwarded to me. The USDA Rural Development State heads an email that he had gotten where their general counsel had approved our contracts with the county and the school board, which were under some pretty significant legal review because it is a new method that hasn't been used before. As we're always on the cutting edge in Jonesborough, that's where we want to be. But so they were reviewing that, and we did get the okay today. But there are some changes that will come back to you and then go to the county. But they did approve all the proposed changes today. So that was a big hurdle, and we are over that, and we'll continue to move forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. And that's, you know, I can't thank Jim enough. Really, from the moment we started, you know, talking about this school project, we've had a great, an impressive group of legal advisors advising us. And I tell you what, it's and this loan we're getting through rural development, the interest rates, you know, falling even greater, so it's more savings for our county, and really just to kind of get it through this hurdle here. It wasn't. This was something like Jim said. I don't know if they've ever done before, but they approved it, and so it's good news for our county for sure. All right, now we get to move into citizens' comments. If you are a resident of the town of Jonesborough, or you're one of our water customers, we'd love to hear from you. We'll give you like 2 or 3 minutes to get up here and say your piece. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to the board, the public? Ruth?
I'm Ruth Verhage, 601 West Main.
Thank you, Jim. Ruth Verhage, 601 West Main. What I want to speak to you about is Positive Blue. We had to cancel, of course, our main fundraiser event, normally held in June, the demonstration competition for the canines. But we normally have, and all of y'all know this, the day before we have had a celebrity bagging, and we sold donuts at Food City. Well, we're going to sell donuts. We had 50 dozen donuts that I had ordered, and I'd never canceled the order. So I talked to Donna Lewis and a couple of other people. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. So if y'all want a dozen Krispy Kreme donuts and contribute to Jonesborough Positive Blue, come to Food City Friday, and we'll have plenty for you to buy.
This Friday?
This Friday, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. I had a little health scare recently, so I don't know if I can take that dozen donuts anymore, but I'll certainly make a donation there to you for whatever that box might be. I'll keep Terry away from them as well. All right, anyone else? Any other citizens like to make a comment? All right, very good.
You got one more, Chuck.
Oh, DW. Appreciate you coming.
Appreciate you guys. I want to start out with thank everybody that is here. It is such a blessing to be part of Jonesborough. This is such a great team, and I am so blessed to be part of this. I came to Jonesborough with something that most in America had no clue of what it was or what I was doing. And I was very, very terrified of opening my doors. And I opened my doors for Jonesborough Days of 2018 and was successful beyond belief. That store brought in over $30,000 for Jonesborough Days in 2018. With that, I was able to educate the public about what I was doing on a large scale. I bet I said, did you guys know that the first American flag was made out of hemp? At least 5,000 times. But with that being said, I was able to educate. And of course, there were some that went and fussed at the town because of what I was doing. But this Jonesborough Days will be my second year in business. And I really appreciate everybody that is accepted us into this town. And I really think that we, as a team, can move forward with the Jonesborough Days. And with that being said, we can work as a team to try to make it happen. This is also an opportunity for us as a team to educate. There's a lot of things going on in this country right now that need education. When I started, I was making a movement, not only in Jonesborough, but across America. Not even America, but maybe internationally. The things that we've been able to accomplish as a store here in Jonesborough. And I would just like to see us kind of work as a team to move forward with our events here in Jonesborough. Jonesborough is a tourist town. We've been open to the public a little over 2 weeks now. 50% of the people that come in my store are from out of town. We do have CDC guidelines in place. This is not going to go away. Just like hemp did not go away. It's all about how we move forward and making things better. Just like the racial thing. It's not going away. And it's not going to go away until we stand up and educate and work together to move forward. We cannot pause. This country was not founded on that. We have to move forward. So as a team, I know that we can all work together to make this town prosper. I know that there's a lot of vendors that that's all that they have. And there's no events nowhere. So their families are really struggling. My numbers has been cut in half. That probably won't go away this year. Jonesborough Days has really made my business prosper, and I've been able to educate. I have people that still order my product from 2018 that came in my store that's not even been back to Jonesborough. And with that being said, I want to thank everybody for everything that they do for this town. There's a lot of workers in here right now, and I really appreciate it. We have a wonderful, wonderful town. And if nobody knew, in the museum over here, there's a hemp rope twister. And it states what it is. And that's what made our decision to be here in Jonesborough. Thank you guys for everything you do.
I'm going to test your memory and see on that Jonesborough Days first opening weekend for you. Do you remember what I came in there and bought? You had to order for me?
Pair of Morel shoes.
Burrell Shoes. Burrell's a great outdoor footwear company. I've sold them forever, and they have I still have them. I wear them all the time. Most comfortable kind of slip-on sandal that you can buy, but it's made out of hemp. But it's a great shoe. So there's a lot of t-shirts, anything. There's
1914 $10 bill is also made out of hemp. It shows farming hemp and manufacturing hemp on the back. I have one in my store. Constitution is written on hemp. One of the things I would really like us to do as this team is work like the endocannabinoid system. We all have this system, and this system's job is homeostasis, which means perfect balance. That's the reason that this stuff does so much.
You said 2018 you made 30,000. What did you make last year?
So our numbers was cut in half last year, and I'm glad you asked this.
Because I think it was the scheduling, because in 2018, we did not overlap with Johnson City. In 2019, we overlapped with Johnson City. I would actually like to see everybody's numbers from 2018 in comparison to 2019 because they overlapping of the Johnson City Festival.
That makes sense. And then just to tie in with that, Dave, I appreciate you, Debbie. You know, we had a letter come in from the owner of the Crystal Raven down on Main Street to express the support for our events. And also Downtown Suite, I just noticed that they moved from an old location down to Steve Cook's old stained glass building right near our Storytelling Center. Downtown Suite's there now. I'll give them a little plug. Because I think I noticed that they sell sandwiches and things like that in there. So
Yeah, they're good sandwiches.
all right, Terry would know. I see him driving around with a golf cart all the time downtown. So make sure we all get out there and visit that. But they also, you know, this, as Debbie said, we've invested a lot of money over many years for our downtown businesses to be successful, and it's kind of like you got two halves. We've got 11E, which has carried us during this pandemic, and there's the way to make our town the strongest. It's always been making sure our 11E is taken care of, but also strengthen our downtown businesses. And we've invested a lot down there to do that. We're still doing that with our Jackson Theater. So we're still you have to reach our potential down there. But the success of these small businesses and these entrepreneurs that are there in our downtown, as a town, I think we just got to stand with them, because we can't afford to have empty storefronts downtown, because then all the work we've done the last 10 years just goes away pretty quick. All right, anyone else? Yes, Jeff. You have a clean mic now.
Very nice. My name is Jeff Gurley. I'm the owner of the Lollipop Shop, and I'm here in support of events, all events, and to try to find a way where we can do it with feet in the streets, people actually here, no virtual. This will be my 20th Jonesborough Days, and I know there's some other business owners here. I'm going in the Jonesborough Days or the summer in the year I'll be happy if I get 50%. And I've been open 3 weekends, Saturday and Sundays, beginning Memorial Day. And we click off the number of people that come in our store. Been averaging right up about 105. And those have been good weather days. And those numbers would have been over 300 come into my business on those particular days as opposed to last year. So I'm doing a third of what I'm doing. So a Jonesborough Days or any event is incredibly important. And with this year, part of my son and I, we just came back from a little trip and we're red-faced, but we had neighbors from Michigan at this campground. And they came to Tennessee because they said to get out of Michigan. And our state is open. But I don't expect a lot of out-of-town visitors compared to previous years, but I think we have a unique opportunity to recapture our locals. Those are the hardest one to reach, the people that live 10 or 15 miles away.
And drive through Main Street, just love to look at it if they don't get out of the car.
That's right. We have 4,000 or 5,000 cars that drive through Main Street Monday through Friday, but they drive. So trying to make something positive out of this is, fortunately, Jonesborough has been reluctant or slow to react to canceling, as opposed to our neighboring towns cancel events earlier. So I would like to state my support for ongoing events and find a way to do it. And I can't tell you how incredibly important it is for me and my neighbors. And my neighbors are full-time business owners. This is all I do. So with that said, thank you for not making, thank you for your time and cautious approach. And I think as we look around with, you know, if Dollywood and Disney weren't going to be open, I think our town could be open. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Ben?
Good evening, Mayor and Alderman. I appreciate everybody's work here on the board. And my name is Ben Dean, and I'm the co-owner of the Jonesborough Barrel House over here on Main Street. I just want to echo really what DW and Jeff has said. We opened the restaurant late in 2018. It was November, so we kind of got on the tail end of the town events. But 2019, Jonesborough Days produced for our business, the restaurant, just over $24,000 in 3 days. And just like the other business owners here, the town events create enough surplus income for us to sock it back for the winter time to get us through the slow seasons. That's just the way it is in tourist towns. I remember years ago growing up, Pigeon Forge in Gatlinburg, before it exploded, it was a ghost town in the wintertime. And fortunately, times have changed to where our town is so unique and draws so many people from over the country and even other countries. We've got a map in our restaurant, and we ask our guests to put a pin in the map to let us know where they're from. And there's not a single state that someone hasn't visited our little town, and they come especially just to check us out. So I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud to be a member of the town, a business owner, and I'm also voicing my support that we need to push forward, even though we need to do it cautiously, and I understand that. But canceling things is detrimental. It will be detrimental to us because we rely on all that extra surplus that these foot traffic events cause for us. So again, I want to thank each of you up here today and everyone here tonight, and that's all I've got.
Thank you, Ben. Anyone else? Deb?
I agree with everything you're saying. As a business owner, I'm down 40 to 50%. I depend on large events, but at what risk right now? We're seeing numbers tick up, and that scares me for myself. I'm 68. I'm in the high risk category, but I also have employees that need a job. So I don't know the answer. I'd like to see things going on in town, but in a safe way that protects our community and my employees. Mask, social distancing, we cannot enforce that. I would like to see something, and I don't think we can, really. I'd like to see something that's done for our community, but not with the goal of attracting hundreds and hundreds of people from all counties where everybody else has shut down everything and opened the gates for here. I don't want to see that.
I agree.
But yes, I want something to help us get through this and keep us afloat. And I think there were some proposals. I think some of them are good. I think there's things that we can work on. But having more of a focus on our local businesses as opposed to bringing in a lot of vendors, and it may not be a popular vote, but that's it. So thank you.
Thank you, Deb. I think where your mind is at, I think that's, I know it's where mine is at. I think I said a long time ago, if we had events down here, we don't need to be, marketing outside of our area and attracting people from everywhere, because we could overwhelm our, public safety team and really overwhelm our town, because there is a lot of other places, shut down. There's places open back up. I drove through Elizabeth and they had a big car show over there, and so there's some of that going on. But we need to take care of our own. We've got plenty of people here locally that need to get out, really for the mental health. I get emails all the time from people, elderly people just dying to get to our senior center. We've been really careful there, and we're going to continue being careful there. But there's a lot of people. It's not healthy being indoors for so long, and I don't think that's indisputable. And I think in terms of businesses, I've done it for a long time, and there's things, if you're a business and your location is in the mall, you got the mall in there marketing for you. They pay. Most of those places, pay for that. They pay common area maintenance as part of their rent, and that's something in the mall. Their duty is to market and advertise to draw people to that mall, so that business can be successful. And if they're more successful, then that mall is going to be more successful. And in many ways, we're like that same landlord. We need to support the ones who are supporting us with sales tax dollars. Our residents, they're going to be. They'll make the choices themselves. Where to go. They always do that, and. I know for right now in retail, if you're following any of it, in most cases, it's a lot easier than it is for our little town right now to compete with what's going on in the larger cities. Believe me, when people got restless being at home, they came out and they've been shopping with abandon. It's been, in most cases, a lot of retailers up 70% or more, because people, they're not going to probably travel as much. They're not going to spend money on going to Italy and Europe and places like that. They're going to spend their money at home. They're buying furniture. They're buying cars. If you've been to Walmart, you see they have no bicycles. Bicycles are sold out for 6 months. People are buying stuff because they plan on staying home, and that's where we have a great opportunity to really market to our locals and get them in the habit of visiting Jonesborough. And if we can get them into that habit for 21 days, that creates a habit, and then they're going to stick with us, and they're going to be shopping in our downtown or our 11E and not driving to somewhere else to do their shopping or shopping online. So that's my retail salesmanship right there. Okay, anybody else? Last call? All right. Hi. I didn't mean to talk over you. I thought we was done. So
It's all right. It's all right. I just came to support my fellow business owners, because festivals don't really do much for me except give me exposure. I've had people walk in the shop and say, "I didn't know, how long has your barbershop been here?" 2 years. They're like, "Oh, really?" So it gives me exposure, although it doesn't really give me revenue. I actually close during the events, but me and my family very much enjoy them. I'm sure you know that I live there and work there, so Jonesborough is very fond of my heart. I also have a senior, so it's been a trying time, but I'm here to support my fellow business owners and try to boost up them trying to make it. It very much is hard to make it here during the winter, so we do have to sock it away when we can make it. But I really don't have a horse in the race as far as being open, because thank God I've been open for 5 weeks, and it is a godsend that I've been doing haircuts like crazy. But I do think there needs to be some type of safety, but I do know that these guys really need this. They really do. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Okay, very good. We'll carry on. We're going to jump into our old business now. We've got a handful of things right there to discuss. First item on the agenda from our old business is discussion and possible action concerning second and final reading of an ordinance annexing the town's Persimmon Ridge water reservoir property. We talked about that in our public hearing.
Move to approve, Mayor.
Got a motion to approve from Alderman Dixon.
Second.
And a second from Alderman Countermine. Any discussion? All right, call the vote, Madam Recorder.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
Alderman Kelly.
Aye.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Crosby.
Aye.
All right, we own a water tank now. All right, discussion and possible action concerning second and final reading of an ordinance annexing 13.8 acres of property along Anderson Road and the plan of services. Alderman, does anyone have any comments about that recommendation? The recommendation is to approve. That property will be zoned PRD, which is one of our favorite zones to zone property in Jonesborough, just because it gives the town a little bit more control. We get a little nicer neighborhood, and
Do we need to make 3 different motions on this?
no, you can approve all 3 together.
No, you have to vote on these all three.
Okay, so we got all 3 recommendations there. We have to do all 3.
So, make a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance annexing by request 13.8 acres owned by Whitney Riddle, portion of parcel 171 on Washington County Tax Map 051.
All right, we got a motion to approve recommendation number 1.
Second.
Got a second from Alderman Causey. Any other discussion on that point 1? Okay, Madam Recorder, call for the vote, please.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Conermine. Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. Okay, we got recommendation 2 is to approve the plan of services.
Motion to approve plan of services.
We got a motion to approve number 2 from Alderman Callahan.
Second, Mayor.
Second from Alderman Dixon. Any discussion? Call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Conermine.
All right, very good. Next thing is, not sure that the rezonings probably should be point 3, but it's got 2 again. But recommendation 3 is to rezone zone the property annex PRD.
Did we already do this on the planning commission, Jim?
But the planning commission approved it, but then
We approved it, okay. So just make sure I could approve it or not. All right. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve recommendation 3, which is zone the property annex PRD.
Second.
A second from Alderman Causey. Any discussion? All right, call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Conermine.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
All right, very good. There are several things, or a couple of things I think is great about that. One is the PRD zones, great for the town of Jonesborough. It's also great, 13.8 acre developments, ought to be quite a few homes. We've got this remote, people can work remotely now, fast internet service, so it makes it a very attractive thing to do. So that's going to generate more property tax dollars for us. So you gotta like that. A lot of pluses as the town grows. Probably the next thing is we've had a few things develop out in our area that was outside of our city limits, and we didn't annex them into our town, and that's probably a mistake years ago. So I like it when we do expand our borders and give somebody services we really need to be in our city limits. It's better for them, it's better for our town. Jim?
Mayor, if you could go back to item 6A, and I'm sorry I missed this, but you did, I think, one vote for the annexation and the zoning, and I would appreciate it if you could take a
Is that
second.
because it's zoning? I know we've
Yeah.
combined, okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, we approved recommendation 1, right?
Yes, sir.
And now we need to go back and approve recommendation 2 on item 6A, which is the zone the property annex R1, which is low density residential. And again, that's for our water tank.
Who's on there? 6.
Mayor, I move to approve.
Motion.
So, get a motion.
Okay, we need a motion to approve from Alderman Dixon, which is recommendation 2, is to zone that property R1.
Second.
Second from Alderman Conermine. Any discussion? All right, call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
Alderman Conermine.
Aye.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
All right, very good. Now we got that all official. Thank you, Jim. All right, we're going to move into one other thing here, renaming of the Smith Lane Connector. I think Craig's struggling spelling connector, so we're going to rename it something more simple for him. Looks like there might have been some conflicts there. He tried to put it in there that some other excuse, but I don't get that. But the recommendation is to rename that little connector from Smith Lane over to North Cherokee Tiger Way. And I think that's highly appropriate since we're going to have the Jonesborough Tigers out there in that school here before long. So that's the recommendation.
So moved.
Motion to approve from Alderman Countermine. Got a second from Alderman Causey. I'll let Jim say it.
We just need to clarify. The recommendation was that it be named that from Jackson Boulevard all the way to North Cherokee, not just the connector.
Oh, really?
What you just said was just the connector. We just need to clarify that so the record will be straight. Are we?
Well, that's what the recommendation said. My thought was it was just the connector. Is that the entire street?
It says Jackson Boulevard.
It is from Jackson Boulevard to Cherokee.
Okay.
So last BMA meeting, we called it Smith Lane Connector. 911 didn't.
Right now, Smith Lane runs from Jackson Boulevard all the way to the homeowners.
Yes, there's two homeowners that enjoy Smith Lane.
And they'll still be Smith Lane.
Correct. They're the only ones addressed as Smith Lane.
Okay, okay. Yes, splitting hairs, that sounds good.
There you go.
You all okay with that?
Yes, sir. Yep.
All right, Madam Clerk, call the vote, please.
Alderman Countermine.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
All right, kids, we got Tiger away now. That's how you turn off to go to my own homestead right there. So since I was a Jonesborough Tiger, that's highly appropriate. All right, discussion and possible action concerning approval for the Wetlands Water Park for the 2020 season. Enjoyed reading through that. I appreciate Mr. Ford and County Administrator Rosenoff and Matt for all the time they put into it. I think it's a really good plan. And I like that within the recommendation is to approve the Wetlands Water Park reopening plan in its entirety as submitted, with the exception we're going to add private parties, and that makes sense. They're generally smaller little gatherings, I guess you would say. Alderman, any comments about this agenda item?
I think it's well done, put together, and, you know, you think about how much money it's gonna bring to town. What is it, what'd you say, Chuck, was the first 4 days of being open, it'll bring in $37,000?
Yeah, I think that's what Matt had in there, and also kind of gives us a little bit of a start on the season, and we really, you know, just like I said about these festivals, we're not going to get overrun. Same thing, we're reducing the capacity there at Wetlands Water Park, and really, Craig and I had that conversation. There are some advantages of opening before, you know, the July the 4th time period to give you a chance to properly train your people to follow all the CDC and state guidelines on cleanliness. You know, if something's not working, you perfect it. So really, I think it's a well thought out plan. I appreciate that. And there's probably some other things that, you know, we've kind of learned from this. I think there's some electronic things we can do down there to make things a little bit more hands-free, but that's going to be some investments there, but a small cost that hopefully, you know, next year we'll have down there.
In this presentation, it says the parks will stay open until September 13th when school starts. School starts August the 3rd.
Yeah, I don't know if that, it depends on what happens after. Yeah, well, I think the plan is to stay open a little bit longer just so they can bring in a little bit more revenue for a few more weekends. So this stays warm, you know, plumb up into October for the most part. But that's
it.
I've talked to Matt and Gabe and saw them out there making lines for the social distancing, and it's going to be half capacity, and I think they're doing a good job. It is going to cost money to open it, and I don't have a problem, but I hope that this group, us, come the fall, we aren't going to make a lot of money. You know, when the full season, we've a little more than broken even in the last few years.
Yeah.
So to think that in July, because usually June and July are the big months, August, if the kids are back in school and you just do weekends, yes, if the weather's good, you'll get money. But I just don't want the comments which have been made in the past by us, well, you didn't make any money this year, what's going on out there? Because in my opinion, they're not going to even break even.
Yeah, I think
And I don't have a problem with that, and I hope everybody up here realizes that what we're approving here is setting them up for losing money, but it's providing a lot of things for people to do, and I'm okay with that. But I hope, because you, Chuck, have said, you know, taking a risk. And as Craig said last time, it takes what, 20 people to minimum to open it?
What, normally it takes 28 employees on a daily basis, and then of course, they were saying that they would probably need a couple of more staff to be able to implement some of the cleaning and some of that things. I know when Mr. Rosenoff and I met with Gabe and Matt, I was really trying to push him very hard on his numbers. And one of the things that you have to bear in mind, we made a little bit of a profit last year, but had a horrible season. So a lot of it deals with your season.
The weather.
What he told us in that meeting was, this is based on cafe sales. It's based on that we can get close to that 570 a day and still be able to show a profit at the end of the season. I still feel like that there are going to be so many people stay at home this year that they're looking for something to do. And, you know, our thing is get it open safely and be able to reach those numbers
And
as
run
many
it
days
safely.
as we can.
Well, that wetlands, you know, it's got, you know, several benefits for our community. One is like, it's the first job for so many young kids down there. That's where they get their feet wet. So that's gonna be a plus for those, you know, young kids. And if there's one year you won't hear me say anything about they didn't break even or make any money, it'd be this time. I think it's important for really the psyche of our community and really for these young kids. And it might be said, we might find out we really don't need season passes, because when you have a $70 season pass and somebody comes 4 times a week, they take up a lot of space, and it averages out to about 50 cents a trip maybe. And so with the plan, when people show up, it'll be a fee just like most places, and I feel pretty good about that plan. I think financially gonna be fine.
Well, and one of the things too, Alderman Cameron, one of the biggest reason why we chose not to sell season passes is that we rarely ever meet that 1140 capacity. But if we reduce that, if we get to capacity and then 10 or 12 season pass holders showed up and we said, we're sorry, we're full, you can't come in.
And Matt will explain
That would be a big problem, so we chose not to do that. And then one of the other downsides to this season is a lot of those young people that you just spoke of, Mayor, that return each year. A lot of times after a year, they return as lifeguards, and unfortunately this year, there were no lifeguard schools in the area, so that made it more difficult too, just to get the proper staff we needed just for the lifeguards.
Yeah, some of the other ones have already taken other jobs.
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes,
I do have one question. So if we're cutting our capacity in half, would it make sense to have a full staff of 28 people, or can we save some money there and back down the?
No, sir, that staffing level is basically based on the number of slide attendants you have to have, the number of lifeguards you have to have on duty, then the staff that it takes to clean, the staff it takes to operate the cafe. As a matter of fact, we were going to use a couple of the staff members in the cafe. When you open up in the morning, everyone's usually not going to run to the cafe, so we're going to use those staff to open an additional sales ticket window to help get those through, and also use one of the other cafe staff members to help get the people in the gate, so you don't have these long lines. But there's really, whether you have 50 there or 1,500, you have to have that number to be able to operate that facility because it's so spread out.
It's kind of our minimum staff levels, whether you got 100 or 500, you got a minimum.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
In the Tennessee Pledge guidelines for swimming pools, water parks and all, it says that you should maintain a guest or visitor log. So are we gonna have the people at the gate writing down names and phone numbers? Because it says you have to keep it on file for 30 days in case someone comes up with the virus.
I really don't see that impossible for us to do
But
that.
that's in the guidelines that it has to be.
Well, then we'll have to have that staff person do that.
If
We'll
that's,
have to have that staff person do that because we were gonna have that staff person in that breezeway taking the temperatures of folks that are coming in.
let's make sure that's in there, you know, this, okay, yeah, I don't mean, yeah, let's make sure we do that, and then we'll, you know, the state's putting out guidelines all the time to make sure that if anything they change, that we're flexible to change like the state. There's some people saying that it's gonna be less restrictive by the time we open, it might possibly be more restrictive, so let's leave
I
some
feel like a lot
flexibility.
of, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I feel like a lot of things that we are doing this year, Mayor, it's kind of like shooting at a moving target. I mean, things are constantly changing over time, and I feel sure this will change. They came out with a plan that I think Dollywood Splash Country was using, and it's a very lengthy document, and I've just not had time to read that as well.
Well, we've got it in here that, you know, that you guys are going to periodically make sure you got those changes, and I think, like Virginia pointed out there, very, very good point, there's reasons for that, so we can certainly have people sign in as they come, or sign in for them.
Another question I have is, it says ingress and egress needs to be separated. How are you going to do that?
The only way we can do that is, you know, like we've done some of the other buildings here. I mean, in this back door back here as an example, you know, and the same thing with the visitor center where they have those extra doors. You just have to mark one of those gates down there as enter only and one of them as exit only. I mean, that's all you can do. Again, I think that will be, what we're hoping is, that will be less of an issue. We'll still have those gates marked, but I think if we set that capacity at half, I think once that park would fill up, most of those people will stay there during the daytime. So I don't think you'll have a turnstile mass exodus, but we'll just have to mark gates at the park, what you can enter and where you have to exit. And that's in some of that stuff that Matt Townsend sent to us. I mean, we'll have a lot of different CDC suggested posters and guidelines posted throughout the park as a part of that opening as well.
So once you get into the park, you won't be able to leave and come back.
Yes, you will be able to leave and come back. What I'm saying is, I don't think you'll see the constant turnover, especially with the lack of season pass sales this year. I'm not saying that couldn't happen. Those gates just have to be marked enter and exit. What I'm saying is, I don't think you'll have a tremendous amount of back and forth throughout the daytime once we reduce that number of people that are allowed into the park. I mean, it would be near impossible for us, as an example, Alderman Causey, to have someone sit there and try to count the people as they come in and then take them off as they come back out to be able to get that head count. Once we reach that 570, that'll be it for the day.
So if you sell 570 tickets by 11:30 a.m., then we're done for the day.
We're done.
And, okay, that's.
And again, we'll post signage there saying that the park is at capacity, so we don't have people lining up outside at that point trying to get in.
I would think you have a little
sandwich board or something.
Yeah, even towards the entrance down there, where the ballparks are, or you know,
Right.
somewhere close to where they don't get out of their car.
Right. Yes.
Alderman, anyone else with any thoughts on that?
Motion to approve.
We've got a motion to approve from Alderman Callahan. The recommendation as written, and we just want to make sure, you know, where we talk about, you know, changes that we've made periodically, as Virginia pointed out there, that that's a good example of things that we'll need to be flexible with. All right, we got a motion from Alderman Callahan. Any other discussion or a second?
I'll second.
Second from Alderman Countermine. Any other discussion? All right, call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Kellermeyer.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
Pass.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. Thank you, Alderman. Appreciate the good discussion. All right, we'll move on to our next one. 6E, we've got several of them in here. First one, excuse me, 6D, I missed number 2, appointment of our seasonal employees. We've got a list of the workers we just talked about. See some familiar names in there, so we've definitely got some people coming back.
Do we need to consider those additional positions to potentially clean, or would you come back with like a kind of an addendum, maybe at next month's meeting with those additional employees?
Which ones are doing the cleaning?
Do the cleaning.
Or does this list include the 2 additional, I guess, is what we're asking?
I didn't see cleaning employees in this.
No, sir, they would, that would just be staff that is
Maintenance.
hired that are assigned those duties.
Maintenance, I guess you would say.
Right, and maintenance.
Okay, okay.
Let's make sure, I think, our staff's well aware of our steadfast resolve to do things right, and if we, like I said, if there's one thing we're gonna do right, we're gonna make sure we've got enough staff to clean and do those things we're supposed to do, and make sure we're operating entrances and exits the right way, so. All right, any other comments? All right.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve from Alderman Callahan. Second. Got a second from Alderman Countermine. Get those employees hired down there. And if no more discussion, call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Kellermeyer.
Aye.
Alderman Causey. Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
All right, very good. All right, now we'll get into 6E, the beautiful Chucky Depot Museum reopening plan. Read through that. I think that the team down there and the advisors did a very good, thorough job for that facility. Alderman, any comments on that?
Mayor, my only concern with this whole section of 6E, when we think about rentals, I would think that for Amber, who handles our rentals, I would just think that we would need to make amendments to our rental policy. Amendments to our rental policy that requires the use of masks. Amendments to our rental policy that encourages social or physical distancing. And also the implementation of a sanitizing fee. And so, again, you know, I'm comfortable with the reopening plan for Chucky Depot, but I'm just thinking that they do have a section in here that talks about rentals for different events, and I would just think that we want something that's consistent for all of our facilities. So that's my only concern.
Can we address that outside of this and require staff to put that together? I think y'all might be working on it anyway.
So yes, Mayor, there's already addendums in place as part of our rental policy that is COVID-19 specific, and of course could be used if there was another pandemic. Hopefully it never happens again. The only thing is, Alderman Dixon was saying, the only thing that I don't see consistent would be the wearing of masks. But as far as the social distancing, the cleaning, the sanitizing, we also are asking those who are renting in a lot of cases to present as part of the rental policy their plan to address measures to be safe. So I guess it marries us well with what we're expecting and knowing that they'll meet and exceed what we're expecting from them.
Well, maybe something like what Virginia addressed our with wetlands, maybe in our rental policy, if it's, you guys can bounce around for, if it's not too much of a hurdle, just make a list of who's going to, you know, be there for during that rental in case you ever got a follow-up or something, so we
Sure.
know who was there.
We can do that.
Adam, is that Chris?
That's fine.
Anyone else got a comment on the Chucky Depot? If not, I'll take a call for take a motion.
Move to approve, Mayor.
Motion to approve from Alderman Dixon.
Second.
Second from Alderman Countermine. Any other comments? Call for the vote. Madam Recorder?
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
Alderman Kellemeyer.
Aye.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
All right, motion carried. Thank you, Alderman. All right, we're going to get into music on the square. Recommendation is there, I think Mr. Cook has been putting that on, and we accepted the idea there that we're going to cancel that 220 season. And as you can read through the recommendation there, there's a small payout for Steve's services up to a certain point. There's one thing in the background that we need to check on. One where it's talking about $500 to one of our residents here. Statements made that they've been playing virtually for that season.
It's Delsimer. I looked it up. There's a lot of, well, it's virtual, but there's some musicians that are providing music virtually. So one of his suggestions when I spoke to him last week was not just those acts that were related to Mott's, but also Mr. Berger. Hopefully I spelled his name correct, but Mr. Berger as well. And again, these in the background is based on my conversations with Mr. Cook.
So I couldn't find that. I could go to there was no mention of that on Music on the Square's website, and then on Facebook about anything virtual been done.
Yeah.
That's fine if we know that.
I did find it. I listened to it.
I know I saw it one time before.
I've been
I
listening to, and in fact, we let them, it isn't total, I mean, it's virtual in terms of listening, but some of them have actually come to town and are down in that facility down in the old railroad, where all the old railroad trains are.
It's probably more of a mysterious, like, stay tuned to where we'll be next. I'm having trouble knowing where they are.
They've had several thousand people watch
really?
it,
That's cool.
and they mentioned Jonesborough, so.
Well, they did. That's
It's
neat.
a good promotion for us, I think.
It's on Jimmy Ryan's property.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I like it. Alderman, any comments?
The only thing that I would kind of like to see, before we look to release Steve's money, I would ask that we could get a full list of his contacts and bands that he had planned this year, just in case, something comes down the road.
Yeah, we should want to know who was booked in case we want to use them for, a future event. Ben might try to snag them out for the barrel house or something and give them little extra funds.
Yeah, that would be great.
But that list, and then make sure, I really think we should always be collecting equipment from our contract people. So let's make sure we, if we're not going to do the season, let's make sure we know where our equipment is.
I can follow up. We do know where the equipment
Okay,
is.
very good.
Did you talk to Steve about this recommendation?
I did last week. I did not, as far as like him requesting 6,000. We talked about the acts. He talked about requesting 6,000. He talked about the $500 for Mr. Berger. I spoke to him about the act of the board recognizing the 2020 season was canceled to rescind the offer to contract. We spoke about that, but as far as the recommendation, that was not discussed. That's for the board to accept either the background or the recommendation.
So recommendation is there, where it differs is 3,000 versus 6,000.
And just to say, I think I said it in my background was amazing enough. He doesn't sound like he has a whole lot of written contracts, but he's been very successful over the years to attract the acts. But much of it, I think, it's maybe verbal, maybe email.
Yeah.
And I can follow up with him whatever documentation or information that you're looking for. But I do know also that, as he said it, if they don't show, they don't get paid. But it's a high, I think probably like 95, 98% who he books shows up and plays. So I can follow up with him on a list. He definitely has a list, whether or not there's an email connection or a text or something. I can look into whatever the board wants me to validate.
So you're not recommending anything for Mike DeBella?
For who?
Who?
Mike is the one that's in Don Berger are the two that are, adults. Sue.
Are they
Well,
contracted?
Don Berger.
Don Berger, I would take as he's been a performer that Steve has booked to kind of do multiple things. That's why he's requesting that. It's not, is that 500? That's why I asked.
500 is separate from the other acts. It would be 500 specific.
Are you recommending we pay that 500?
I would recommend that,
Okay.
especially if those are
Yes. If he's done
where
it, yes.
he has done it right, and
Yeah.
I would change my recommendation
comfortable with
to
that.
add
Make
Mr.
sure-
Berger.
We'll make sure that's clear that $500 to Don is in there. And this is paying for those acts for the month of June. Okay. Alderman, any other comments? Virginia?
I think we're good.
So 35 total?
Yeah.
Then plus the acts for June.
$100 for
So,
Yes.
No.
There's money in that account.
not unless we can verify, we can always come back at first books, if we can validate, what my preference would be, if we've got people booked for July and August, that if we've got, I don't care if it's just making music down on Main Street when we're people shopping down there, that we can have somebody come down and pay them. He does it.
East Tennessee Hymn Company donates $1,000 to Music on the Square
Yeah.
every year. So
There you go.
All right. So the idea, if ideally in July, any act for July or August, to me, instead of just paying $100, find use for them to.
But your money's in
Sound like
that
Santa
account.
Claus in the corner.
If it's okay with you, Mayor, I'll ask him I'm sure he has a scheduled.
For July and August.
For July and August, I'll just
Yeah,
ask
we
him
can always bring that back.
the remainder, yes.
All right. Did I get a motion to approve this recommendation?
But would that come back to the board because the street's been closed? Or would the streets be closed? It'd just be out there playing music?
No, my thought was we just have it on a corner somewhere.
Like green space by the coffee house.
So we're adding the 500.
Yes.
I will make that motion.
What you got, Ben?
We've got a motion to approve the recommendation from Alderman Countermine as written, plus the 500 that it mentions there for Mr. Berger for all his plan. And of course, if that's something we want to continue, we need to address that with him. If that's something we want to continue on beyond this, let's make sure we do that. And the $100 each to the acts that we had just scheduled for June, and then that's the recommendation. We'll address everything else after that. Got a motion?
Motion to approve.
You got a motion to approve from Alderman Countermine, I need a second. Second from Alderman Callahan. Any other discussion? Call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Alderman Caroline,
Aye.
Alderman Callahan,
Aye.
Alderman Causey, Alderman
Aye.
Dixon.
Very good. Ben, I saw your hand up back there.
Yes, just as a footnote, any of these acts that were scheduled to be here, if they want to get diverted to me, I can get them scheduled in to our backstage.
Yeah.
And, I know what it's like for musicians to get dates canceled.
But yeah, it's,
But,
no doubt.
we've been supporting a lot of local live music every weekend. I bring in acts that are there every week, so any of these ones that are scheduled for months, they still want to come, they can contact me.
I work with a guy that has a band and he plays music, and he says the money he makes on for playing gigs, he calls it, is his food money.
Yep.
Because otherwise, every penny he makes goes to his rent. So these guys do need that for food. All right, so we got that taken care of. Mr. Wheeler?
Mayor, Mr. Rosenhoff, I just want to make sure that the recommendation that you're including the rescinding of the offer to contract.
Yes. That's in the recommendation. All right. Let's move into Movies on Main, 6E, number 3 on that. I think that was well written. I think we got a good recommendation there. And while we're on Movies on Main, I'm going to take a chance to just thank Adam again. He had a great idea that we're kind of playing around with. And I think some other people have tagged on to it. So we got some exciting things about movies. And Jeff does a good job down there on Main. Alden, you got any comments about that?
So what would be the first day, the first date?
July the 11th.
11th, okay.
Well, July 11th.
So if we do the most recent option of behind the courthouse and the Parsons Table parking lot, the drive-in option, Jeff, I was gonna ask if Jeff was comfortable with that, but
I think this plan, I could be wrong, is where it's always been at, same location. What we're thinking about with your ideas is something bigger.
oh, something different then.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is different, and Mayor, it's, as it was reflected in the background, which includes, Mr. Gurley's, protocol, that last bullet, he had presented, as far as in his information, to propose the first movie to begin on Saturday, June 13th. So, as far
Okay.
as staff looked at it, and I have that in the recommendation, the option is to look at how July 4th, how we work our magic on the measures that we are going to have in place and be organized, and social distancing and cleaning and sanitizing, to have that as a session for us to be prepared for Mr. Gurley's event. But again, it's just it's a recommendation to start it the week after July 4th.
Okay.
Is this gonna be on the side of the courthouse now, or is Main Street gonna be closed?
Main Street would be closed, it would be the same venue. Is that correct?
Yeah.
As far as movies on Main?
Same for the last 10 years, yes.
And there's some things that kind of makes sense on just allowing the town, because we really would like to have some signage put up downtown talking about distancing and some of the other important things that we need to make sure we're doing. I know we discussed about making sure we have some of that made.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's the same philosophy as wetlands, where prior to you entering, you understand the protocols that are in place. It would be the same thing for our events.
It's not paper signs, is it?
Whatever you want, Mayor.
I think if we do those social distancing signs down there, we need to invest a little bit into where they're going to, weather the test of time.
They wouldn't be cheesy.
Okay, yeah. To me, our Wayfair signage down there, as beautiful as it looks, we don't need to tag it up with.
I agree.
East Tennessee Hemp Company's got $1,000 for the signs.
All right, there we go. Okay. That's why we have people come to our meetings. Well, let's hope we don't spend that much on signs. We appreciate that, DW.
Spend on other measures
Thank
that
you.
we need to take, like putting Todd Hensley to work with some of his bike rack to do the interesting thing where the masses isn't coming through just everywhere. They have to come through in certain points. They have to leave in certain points. And that can be done with bicycle rack. I was in entertainment for years. There is ways to control mass crowds.
Absolutely. All right.
So that would be doing the list of names and phone numbers on this event also?
That can be recorded very simply with technology. Simply everybody that comes through, state the name.
Well, something to think about is, I think it's doable just because of the number of people, or it's not a great number of people. It's probably harder at wetlands than anything. People want to come in wet or leaving wet and getting papers wet. But I'm sure Jeff, I don't know if, of course, you're the board there, whether that's something we require for every event. Maybe, what do you think?
That's in the guidelines of the large venues.
I think as long as that's in the guidelines coming from the state, it's one of those options. Should we just not have that in there? If that changes in the future, that's where that flexibility comes into play.
So, right, and that's one of the ideas behind staff being support for Mr. Gurley. And the same thing we've done at Wetlands is, as Craig was saying, we're pulling folks from the cafe to help at those times to be able to provide just, I guess, more protocols and people watching, making sure everything's done correctly.
Can we do this to where, of course it's up to the alderman, where we've got July the 11th start date on there? Let's say we get our ducks in a row earlier than that, and he wants to shoot off a weekend earlier or something. Can we put that flexibility in there that if you all give the okay earlier, it can be? Or you think that's pushing it?
I would think if the board gave that flexibility, then we would have to meet that flexibility. So if the flexibility is that the the board members are comfortable with us making a decision, then of course I can make a phone call and, to affirm that. But if it's not unanimous or consensus, then I would say we wouldn't be able to proceed earlier.
To me, our last date's July the 11th, and if we can get that all put together down there for signage up and get everything into play, and there's a week before that he could start. That'd be up to our board here. We can stick with July 11th. He's want to start June 13th. Maybe there's a happy medium there. Once we're ready to go, we can go. So I trust staff to make that call. Alderman, what's your thoughts on that?
Jeff, how are you going to enforce the social distancing?
Well, and part of the date is also the gentleman that sets up our movies. He's a police officer in the city of Johnson City, so he's working on overtime right now. So the 13th day probably couldn't happen, but we could do it for late June or July, or late June, the 20th or the 27th. Public announcements as people come in, and the nice thing about this event is you have clumps of families and friends sitting together. So we can take it further up to Main Street, and also the Christian church across the street. They always don't mind if people sit in the grass there. So there's a good section of area that can be spread out, and people aren't close to one another.
I think you want to know if we require you to keep a list of who attends each one of those. Is that going to be a burden for you, or can you have something there? And to me,
log.
Yeah, log. I know one thing we had to do where I work, we sell a lot, so we use pens a lot. We got to, if we need to buy your pens, we will, since DW is buying our signs, we can buy a little pack of pens. But enough pens there where a person signs, they keep the pen if they want to keep it. That way, you're not handling.
Oh, that would be no problem.
I guess if the board wants them, sorry.
What would be the maximum you think would come, do you have?
Maximum amount?
Maximum people?
Our garbage crowd was around 500 about 2 years ago.
With social distancing, how many can you have?
I think 200 to 300 is a reasonable number. If we go in both directions, we can also place the speakers in the middle of Main Street where they can back up, further towards the courthouse. Also, they'll be able to hear.
I'm going to say something that really pertains to all of this is the concerns that I have, and admittedly I'm in that vulnerable group. I'm concerned first with that we here as a board are making a decision, and I hear saying, well, our staff can do it, our public safety can do it. Well, it's been said to me several times, well, don't come if you don't want to. It's your choice. And that's true, it is. We aren't giving the staff and the public safety people the same courtesy. They were saying, you gotta go down there and do this and put yourself at risk. And when I talked to Chief Street on Friday, I hadn't even thought of this. If one of those officers, now listen closely, if one of those officers does get the virus, they have to go in quarantine, and everybody around them has to go in quarantine for 14 days. What does that do to our public safety group? And I don't think it's fair for us to ask our staff and employees to do something that we're telling others, well, if you don't like it, don't come. And I have a little bit of problem with that too, because all of the events that we've had, Jeff, I admire you, you've helped start a lot of them. And they do help. But they take volunteers, and when you think of the volunteers that work both in our facilities, Senior Center, the McKinney Center, Storytelling Center, Boone Street Markets, and with every single one of our events, every one of them, a lot of those volunteers are over 60, and a lot of them are retired. And essentially you're saying to them, well, don't come if you don't want to. And so we're excluding them. Indirectly, maybe. And that's not my Jonesborough. I don't think we should do it. And I feel I'm talking both from my heart and my brain. Because you look at the numbers have increased since May 21st. We started reopening on 22nd, and Tennessee numbers are increasing. The article this morning in the Johnson City paper from Dr. Kursky, who we had on telephone last meeting, he says that it's going to happen. He feels going to, and especially because we're kind of in a state of, well, hasn't happened yet, so we're lucky, and that's exactly what he says. But we're also very vulnerable because it hasn't happened. We're not immune to it. Laura, thank you for the haircut. I really enjoyed it. It's one of the best ones I've had. And thank you for wearing a mask. But to have hundreds of people and to think that we can control that and to ask our public safety and our staff to do it, I cannot vote for it, and I won't vote for it. With that said, I would like to see the town, with people like you, Jeff, and Ben, and all of you, you have the brains, and Melinda and others have shown me that you have some marketing expert. I would rather have us contribute $15,000, $20,000 if it takes to advertise and market for the whole summer, not just for one day. Have sidewalk sales, have giveaways. If you go to the water park, get a coupon, and if you spend some money in Jonesborough, you get something, and maybe you win a prize for that week. I don't know. There's a lot of things we can do, and we've done in the past. And I'd like to see us stretch it for the whole summer and help you all for summer, not just for one day. And like I say, and you're smart enough to do that. The Jonesborough days is risky. And it's risky for people, and it's risky for our staff, and it's risky for the public safety department. And I just don't feel comfortable about it. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Terry. Alderman, any other comments?
I agree with Terry. I want to support the businesses downtown. I want to try to help you guys, but I do not feel that we should take risk of exposing our people as well as you all and the people coming in, because there is so many people that will come out even if they don't feel good because it's an event going on. And if one person, the strawberry place, the strawberry patch is one thing that we can look at. You know, one guy was infected, he infected 38 others. You know, it's something that travels. Whether you feel bad or not, you know, it's there. And I can't feel good myself by exposing our staff, our police, our girls that are working, the guys that are working, as well as you all as the, you know, property owners, businessmen, men, women, you know. I just can't feel, I don't feel that way. I have to go with my heart, and I want to protect people. And, you know, when this lightens up, it was in the paper this morning, as Terry said, you know, where it's gone up. We're not in a good place right now.
I would like to ask you, I mean, do you think you could get together, and if we as a board allotted X number of dollars, do you think that you could advertise on the big billboard out here or wherever, so that you could get a fairly steady flow of traffic through the summer? Would that help you?
Definitely not gonna hurt.
Pardon?
It's definitely not gonna hurt, so anything will be a bonus.
I mean, is there ways, Jeff, that working with Melinda and Cameo and our other people in town, that we could figure out a strategy to bring people into town regularly rather than on one day?
I would think so, yes. I mean, that's always a struggle with this.
And I'm speaking for myself. I don't know if the rest of the board will approve it, but I would certainly approve putting a substantial amount to help do that. Because we're talking about spending over $10,000 on one day. On the
time if that's when you get there. So that's kind of tying into what Terry says. There's certainly more, in the past, by the reason it hasn't been done, we've been, somewhat limited financially on how much we can do. But as I said earlier, we're kind of a land and responsible for making sure for others. And Terry is something that the town can afford to do, and there's probably some things coming down the pipe that allows us to do a few more things. Whether that's the only thing we do or whether it's added to the events is probably the question.
Well, and certainly now is the time to do it because you need help. And if our sales tax revenues have been good, and they have been, and we're getting more real estate taxes, so we've got some more money, then I think we invested in our businesses so that we don't have store closings. And we invested not just for one day, but for a long time to help you. That's my feeling. And like I say, I'm worried, Craig, for your staff, and I worry for our staff, for the people that we're talking about. Well, we'll send staff down there to do social distancing, or we'll send staff down there to make sure that people aren't underage if we're going to have they're being exposed, and they don't have a choice. And they want their jobs, so they're not going to say no. And then if something does happen, what happens to the rest of our whole staff? We quarantine people for 2 weeks.
Craig, you want to speak to that? What are you guys doing there in public safety or Chief Street, to make sure our officers are safe, day in, day out? You mind giving me a little 60-second, what are you guys, what's the protocol?
Well, it's obviously not a perfect world, Mayor, as you realize.
Hey, Craig, you take the microphone so people can hear you.
No, I honestly feel like I need a shower after getting this from Wheeler instead of a. It's obviously not a perfect world, as you realize. Most of what our police officers do today is PDA driven, and that's so whether it's doing reports or writing a citation, they have to hand that equipment off to the individual. Say a violator on a traffic citation as an example to sign that, and then they're handing that back. So, we have provided our staff with all the proper PPE equipment. We have trained them on, the proper use of that, and outside of that, obviously we're limited in what we can do, because if we get a call, we're going to have to answer that call. So again, that's just a very short blurb on what we've done within the police department, but that's about all we can do.
We have to think nationwide with all the public safety people, whether it's EMTs and so forth. You've not heard of really a large issue, if any, there. So it's, I think the protocols that public safety departments around the country have in place evidently are working pretty good.
And I think, again, too, Mayor, that depends on the area that you're in. Certainly, they've had EMTs, firefighters, and police officers contract the virus and die. Some have had large numbers where others have not. Again, that's typically in your larger inner cities and that type of thing, where it has been more prevalent than what it has been in Tennessee.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Alderman, any other comments there? If not, we'll take some kind of motion. Adam, Stephen?
Jeff, I do want to say that I wanted to see movies on Main. We had talked at the last meeting, and I threw out an idea. Linda, Glenn, and the mayor, I appreciate them being proactive and trying to move with it. I thought that would be an or, like, either or, so we could have this idea, the idea of having a screen behind the courthouse and having people come in their cars and park. I thought that could be maybe an alternative. I appreciate the mayor moving with it. I didn't know that we were thinking both aided. I thought it could be either or. Like I said, it concerns me a little bit. And again, it's just the people gathering. does concern me a little bit, but I did think that if we could park behind the courthouse and have a screen, I thought there might be a way that we could still keep the event and maybe even still have some traffic downtown. But like I said, it does concern me a little bit, the idea of large gatherings downtown that we can't enforce. If we can think outside the box, to me, that was going to be a little more comfortable to work with. And I hear the comment when we say think outside the box. That's not code for virtual. How can we do things a little differently? And I was hoping that the drive-in option might be a way to move with that.
Is there any thought there if, that making a difference, Alderman, if capacity is half of what, Jeff talked about? Yes, 500 does make, at one time for a short amount of time play. But what if the capacity was limited? I don't know if that worked for Jeff. Does that work for any of you?
I think if it's within state guidelines, then there's no reason we shouldn't do it. You go down to Dollywood or Disney World. I mean, there's no reason to financially hurt us and our merchants just because we can. And I see what you're saying, Terry.
Well, in Dollywood, if you look down their site today, they only have one entrance, and they are requiring, I repeat, requiring everybody to wear a mask.
Yeah. I mean, that's something I wouldn't be opposed to.
But how are you how are you gonna enforce that downtown?
They're refunding a lot of their season passes.
You can't do that.
You can't, can you?
An officer can only enforce a law, an ordinance. If it's inside a private property, which Dollywood is, then they can have all the guidelines they want to set inside that business. But on a public street, you can't charge someone because they're not wearing a mask.
Unless you pass it, I mean, I agree with you totally.
Yes.
And the only way you could do that is if you passed an ordinance that required it, I mean, that's not.
And then they'd have to enforce it.
That's correct, it's not practical.
On a similar note, my son and I were downtown Elizabeth Saturday night. I believe that was their second or third week with the cruise in. And that's an open air event. And it's in Elizabeth, and it's comparable. It's probably about 4 or 5 blocks like Jonesborough. Now granted, we were there about 7:30 to 8. So we were on the tail end of it. Car-wise, it looked like their main street where they just kind of go and cruise, or Broad Street was at capacity as far as the cars. And they had a few vendors there, but there were people there. And one thing that, and I'm speaking as a business owner that's been here 20 years, and I don't know the outcome. I'm going to say I don't know what the outcome is. I do know that maybe one misconception of all this could be that, and I know there are other events to talk about, but if we do an event, I don't think we can assume that people are going to come, or that a large crowd is going to come. And I can, on the 3 Saturdays that I've been open, and many of my neighbors will attest to this, but the sidewalks at best are at half capacity.
Yeah.
Monday through Sunday. So I think just because we have a particular event, I don't think I don't think we can assume that we're going to have a typical kind of crowd.
Well, is that, if we lower the capacity allowed for an event like yours to 200 or 250, is that, still going to benefit?
From my standpoint, I think one of the great things that sets us apart from our neighboring towns is that the events that we do. And there is a lot of community pride when people live here. That's why they choose to live here. So if we can have an event and there's 100 people here or 150 people here, I think that's a bonus, especially this year, as opposed to just canceling everything. Or maybe instead of showing 7 movies, we show 4. I mean, I'm extremely flexible. I just hate to cancel a whole season and not try it. I think we can try it, and if we have 500 people here, maybe that's one that we do. But I'm extremely open to any type of conversation.
Yeah, I think there might be more potential to get something if we make sure the capacity is not, more than people are comfortable with. Otherwise, I don't think people are comfortable with 500. But Alderman, what's your thoughts? Is reducing capacity and controlling that an option for you?
I like Terry's idea of that we could let Melinda work with Glenn and whoever she needs to see what we can do to market the downtown as well as the levee and not do it against right now.
And that could possibly be something like that. I mean, if you could guarantee exit and entry, that's the biggest problem downtown. To say that you can control who comes and who doesn't, there's no way. And if 500 people come, ooh. So the first time you're gonna let them come and then somebody, and it's here. I mean, we had 10 new cases this weekend. And another example, here's my brain taking over now, data. And I've been reading a lot about it because I want to help. I hope none of you think that I don't care. I've come to all of your businesses. I care, you know that, Jeff. That Florida just reported this weekend, and they're in phase 2 of opening. On Friday, they had the most single day increase in the virus since they've been keeping track. And this weekend is the same way. And they're concerned. If you want to go over and see Sweden, did you watch them? They didn't take anything for granted, didn't they? I mean, they thought it was good, and now they're really hurting. And that's data. I mean, to say, I really, for people to say, oh, you're overblowing it. Some people say it's a hoax. I'd like for us to tell the 100,000 families of the people that died that it's a hoax. And to think that we're going to be immune from it is, I'm sorry, and I respect everybody's opinion. I hope you respect mine, and I'm not angry. I'm a little saddened by what you're telling the old folks, stay home, because I'm an old folk. And I love Jonesborough Days. I've participated in them every year. We've had a float for 27 years. I love it. We have people come to town. You know that, Jack. We come down to your candy shop every year and bring all our grandkids, and they stock up on candy and their parents are upset with me because they got sugar high. So, but it's just too early, in my opinion. Now, again, we can wait and see what happens this month. And we can do other things. Like the first proposal that we looked at last time from Linda, I thought was good. And we were going to do something on Saturday and try to attract crowds and bring in the business. I don't know what happened to that. And all of a sudden it's not that anymore. Because I think that was good. And again, we say, oh, don't do the virtual. Some people like the virtual. I had my grandkids all excited. They were going to make a virtual float up where they live and send it so people could see it.
Yeah, we need, it's tough no matter what we decide, but, virtual is not going to, pay the bills for our businesses downtown. That doesn't put feet coming in their store. Your best hope is they buy something online if you have that capability.
Well, I haven't shopped anywhere except Jonesborough. If I could get it in Jonesborough, if we could send that message to everybody who lives in Jonesborough.
Jeff, how does your business directly benefit from the movies? Is it to get people in your front door? I mean, if we have it behind the courthouse, would that still give you the same benefit as having it in front of your doors? I mean,
no, I mean, it would be the equivalent of moving music on the square.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the setting. And I get exactly what you're saying, Terry. You're a dear friend of mine. We can have these. We can have. There might be a nice Saturday this weekend. We might have 700 people in town. I mean, there's always gonna be that risk or danger. So it is an outdoor event, but I understand where you're coming from. I'm just, I see it as, and I guess it's the crowd thing, but, how do we keep from people coming on Saturday and Sunday? Maybe our weekends we might have great weekends. I don't think so. I think most of us would be happy if July is half.
I think the more that we're hindered, this country is already hindered enough from everything going on. Back to what I said on moving forward, Tennessee has set forth guidelines for us to follow. There is a lot of very, very professional people that came up with those guidelines for us to abide by. How many people in here's been to Lowe's? I have not. I have not been to Walmart. I did go to the beach, and I've seen some of the greatest social distancing that I've ever seen. And it was no marks in the sand. It was respect for human beings. And Jonesborough has that.
All right, thank you, DW. All right, Alderman, we've had a good discussion on this. It's probably going to set the tone. I don't know if you can make a motion of whatever you need, and your motion can be to just shut her down, or it can be to limit capacity, or pretty good point. You don't know who shows up on a day who walks in your store, and my thought is, and I've said it, that what's going to change. We could be sitting here next year with this crazy thing still going around, and you can't. And there are a lot of viruses out there, that I've said, that's still around, and at some point you gotta. I can live a life and learn and adapt. You gotta figure out things like what we're doing here, and still important that you can't have families starving because their businesses go under, and then it's hard to dig yourself back out of a hole, whether you're a town or whether you're a business. All right, somebody take a...
Mayor, well, let me ask you, as the mayor, how much do you think the town could afford to invest in our businesses so they don't have to?
Yeah, well, we should be...
And do you feel uncomfortable doing that? And if not, I'm certainly not going to hold you to it, but I'd like to know.
No, you asked me a question, I'll answer it. It ain't going to be from sales tax dollars. Yes, it was nice to have an extra $20,000 last month in sales tax dollars. We're probably going to be another $30,000 or $35,000 the month after that. That's nice. But we've also lost some revenues, like I said, in rentals and things like that. So that kind of evens out. So we're in a good position compared to most people. The only way we can do more things in marketing, like Terry's thinking about, we need to. We've got the potential for some stimulus money, I think, coming in that can be used for various things. And if that type of expense is covered, then we would have the funds to help. But I don't see. I've been in retail a long time, and you put a lot of billboards up, and a lot of people drive by, and we get about 2%. It's about 2%, really it's about 1% or even 2% on marketing. If you get 2% of your people you've reached out to come in and shop with you, you've hit a home run. So it'll take a lot of marketing to make up for, what the town has done for years, and that's, made it a wonderful place. Little small events. I don't think any of us want, if I was going to do movies on the main, I'd put a cap on it at 250 people, and when you get to that, that's it. Just like we would at wetlands, we got a capacity set there. Let's put capacities on something, and it gives you more room to spread out down there. If we can't do it at that lower capacity, then we don't do it. But it's better than nothing, because if you do nothing, you're going to see some empty storefronts. I guarantee you that, and we've done a lot. I understand all about the risk that our health. We have. It ain't. I don't think it's going to go away. So we can't continue to do nothing, because it ain't going to go away. I don't care when
talk about some drug, was it remdesivir or something like that was going to reduce it from 15 to 11 days, and I'm thinking, what? You get excited about that? You know? And you got HIV's been out there almost for over 40 years, and how many times have you heard they got a cure for that? We're going to have a vaccine for that. It's still going on. Now they advertise on TV for drugs for people with that. You learn to live with it. We learn to live with that virus and others. We just have to hope this one is as tame. I won't say tame. It's a horrible for the ones that get it, but it's there's a lot of illnesses out there, pretty similar. And I don't wish that on anybody. It's a tough decision whether we say yes or no to stuff, but I just fear the outcome. We're still going to be having these cases. The most risky places is our nursing homes. If our nursing homes would have been protected much better from early on, you'd probably see half the numbers out there. It's just crazy what we've allowed that to happen. We've been really fortunate in that area. And I think Dr. Kershke, I had a conversation with him about what was coming, and really what he thought was when they started testing these large farms where they have a large number of migrant workers, he said we're probably going to have some positives, and that's a fact, and that's just going to be the way it is. It's not going to go away. So
we could limit capacity. I mean, we do play bingo, and we do pass out bingo cards, so we could set a certain number. Once those numbers are passed out, then we simply, say we're sold out, and I guess ask them to leave, or leave the area.
Well, and setting up the entrance and exits, it's simple. You got to have one side is going to be your entrance, and then far away from that, you got your exits, so people go in and out of there. So those things is things we have to work out in many areas.
And my first concern on having events is the older generation are the ones that take care of everything. For one, us younger folks should have never let that happen. Take care of them. That's our wisdom. So I've reached out to volunteers of the younger generation to help, because I know Deb is in concern, and I'm concerned for Deb.
Well, there's a lot of businesses never got back open, and there's going to be. And I'm talking about not in Jonesborough. We've been fortunate so far, but you can look in Johnson City. There's a bunch that never did reopen, because a lot of businesses they just like people live paycheck to paycheck. There's a lot of businesses live paycheck to paycheck too.
My Johnson City stores.
Yeah.
So we made a motion to approve based on we come up with some type of agreement with sanitizer stations, entrances, exits. Whether we can do it through Glenn or whatever, but give Jeff a little bit of faith and something we could get behind.
I think you got a rental agreement we require for people renting things. You could give that same similar agreement to ones who are not necessarily renting property such as that they could still agree to follow all the health guidelines that are out there. The most important one, if you have to follow, is the distancing guidelines. If someone is symptomatic or out here and they're sick, the best thing you can do is avoid them and stay away from them. So that's where distancing comes in. You see, things changing all the time. Whether you wear a mask, not wear a mask, it's going to change. I gave the alderman a little report. It says my biggest fear, and I mean this from my heart, my biggest fear all during this whole thing is when you heard up to 20% of the people could be asymptomatic. I'm thinking, man, we got a population of over 300 million people in our country, and 20% of them could be asymptomatic and be contagious. Well, if that was the case, it would have been really tough. But now you have a report from the World Health Organization says that asymptomatic people it's very rare that it happens. So, and that's where I come down on masks. I was thinking, okay, I want to know when I'm walking into a crowd and everybody in there's got a mask, I'm thinking, okay, which one's here wearing a mask because they're sick? To me, I'd rather know if I go into a crowd and I see 10 people wearing masks, I'm going to assume, okay, those folks are sick. I want to give them the distance that they probably won't. And so you kind of know where to go.
So you think the people here that are wearing masks
I don't know, Terry. I don't know, Terry.
I'm
Come
not
on.
sick.
Okay, that's fine. Yes. People can choose.
Get out, Marcy.
People can choose. Okay, people can choose, Terry.
Yeah, but you said you assume that they're safe if they're wearing them.
Yes, and I will choose to avoid them if that's my choice. You don't have to, but I will choose to respect that. All right.
I don't think there's any way that you can limit a crowd downtown unless you got a fence all around and you have an ingress and egress. And who's gonna put the fence up? Who's gonna take it down? It's gonna be our staff that's gonna be out there exposed to whatever is out there. I think there's a motion on the floor, but we need to go with his motion and then go to the second motion.
Stephen, you want to repeat that again?
See if I can do this.
Okay. All right, we'll see if we get you a second.
So I say, present a motion that we could work out almost like a rental agreement, using town property, figure out sanitizer stations, figure out how we're gonna do the gates, and then, you know, volunteers or whatnot, put it on paper, and figure out a way to control the crowd, man. And I think that's the only motion that we can make, other than not doing it all.
Is part of your motion a limit on the number of people?
Limit on the number of people.
For this particular event, I think you should put a number on it.
Yeah, 250.
250, okay. Alderman, we have a motion on the floor from Alderman Callahan to approve that with a cap of 250 people and the assurance that they're following the health guidelines set down by our town. Anyone else got a comment or a second?
What's the starting date?
Starting date, we can do, what's your first, is it the 23rd or 27th?
This month?
Would you want to, Jeff, if you feel comfortable if we move forward with this, could we do the 11th as the first start date?
I'm very flexible.
Okay.
Let's say the 11th. That's what Glenn's recommending, so let's stick with that.
What about if you're advertising, if you do some advertising and in it, you talk about the guidelines that Jonesborough will follow at these events, so people are aware when they come to Jonesborough, if they're not there early, they might be turned away because only so many people.
Yeah, we got to make sure people understand there's a cap on that.
If they know, because a lot of people don't know what the guidelines are. It's nice when you post them and you tell them, like I tell them, they have to wear a mask. I'm going to wear a mask. So if you tell them what to expect when they come to Jonesborough, then they'll know if they want to see it to get there early, and know that we're going to follow the social distancing guidelines. We don't want you coming up to us if we're there. It's still the 6 feet. So if everybody knows that Jonesborough is going to follow those guidelines as a town for these events, like if you're going to have any events, just let them know, like in your advertising, that we will.
Okay, that's I agree with that. And one thing, if I said earlier, we don't need to be marketing a ton of money outside of our area. We need to stick with locals. The money we don't spend on that, we need to reinforce what you just said and make sure people understand when we have an event in Jonesborough, these are the things that we're going to be doing. So that makes sense. We certainly can make that part of the marketing plan for anything is stressing the guidelines that we're going to be following. Adam, you're setting her off quiet. I'm not going to let you.
I'm sitting here thinking because, one of the biggest criticisms of quote unquote politicians is that it seems like seems like politicians are always trying to compromise, or always, they never take a firm stance. They can always get along with anybody. Always got a smile on their face. Can't always seem like you can't make a politician mad, and seem like they're always trying to be somewhat conciliatory. So as I guess this is one time I will wear the badge of a politician. I think compromise is important. I think you need to respect people in this situation on all sides. You've got people that firmly believe that we have a contagion that can kill. We need to respect that. We have some citizens that believe that, practicality is just practicality. We need to open up the town. State's opened up. Let's get on. Let's move on with our lives. Let's find compromise. We got the back of the courthouse. We've done some research. Let's get the screen put up and let's have some cars that make sure we got some spaces for this drive-in movie. It's not perfect. Not everybody's happy, but we can have some people downtown, and it's something. I think, and the mayor alluded to it, that something's better than nothing. To me, that's a healthy balance. We could have, again, cars lined up that ensures the social distancing. It's a point of respect. It's something that I would feel comfortable with as an elected official, because I think that the public health and welfare of our citizens is very important. At the same time, again, people have been cooped up for a long time. They want to get out. And so this would be a good way for us to interact and people to, again, enjoy a movie with their families and have a nice time. So to me, that would be compromise. Do the drive-in option. Let's calculate these costs, because I think it's like $1,500 every time we do the screen, so it's going to be a cost. But we want to go ahead and, I mean, that's the information we got this afternoon, if I'm not mistaken. So it's going to be a cost, but again, it's a compromise. That would be my take on it.
I'm glad I asked you to speak.
But the cost of the movies is not our expense, it's Jeff's, right?
I think he probably pays that anyway. I think
For the rights.
Yeah, now the screen is something that's an expense that I know he doesn't incur. And Glenn has been awful quiet down there, but I'll first say that if the one issue with that we do not own that parking lot behind the courthouse, right? Is that not the county's property? So we'd have to get an agreement with them to use it. Man, I would think that would happen. So I do like that. It's a little further away from some of our retail shops, but it's going to still bring a lot of people down. That potentially bring even more down.
Upper lots the town, so you don't even have to get the county involved.
Well, yeah, if we want to go that far, a little bit further away. All right, I want to make a statement one time. I don't mean to be rude. I'm a little bit more liberal, letting people speak from the crowd than what necessarily most mayors do. I like conversation. I like debating things. But we're going to be here at midnight if I let it continue on. So we're going to get these aldermen making some decisions here. Adam, I think, got a good point there. Jeff, is that, I know it's further away from your storefront, but it gets a lot of people down to our town. Probably bring more potentially as a tailgating than what you'd have sitting out there. It's certainly something to explore.
I would just get with Officer Eric, who actually sets the equipment up, and I mean, if it's logistical possible to do, meaning people can actually gear.
I'll ask, Stephen's got the motion and Adam's got the closest one right there with, my thought when Adam mentioned, this idea was birthed from him at one point. That large screen that we would use for a drive-in is more costly than I would feel comfortable in making a downtown business incur. Much like we're wanting to spend money to market for a downtown. I wouldn't expect you to pay for the screen. I would think that's something the town could pick up to hold the event. The movie, which I'm sure you pay the rights to anyway, would be your responsibility.
I think we should pay for the movie too.
That'd be fine with Terry's feeling.
I mean, since it's not what Jeff has proposed, it's something we're proposing, I don't think it's fair to ask him.
I like that even better. It's just a little bit different location, and if I would add anything to Adam's flexibility, a little flexibility here, it might not need it. We might find out that's the best. We should have been doing that the last 5 years. But if things improve, things change, we need to have the flexibility. At some point, we could bring back and say, okay, we can do it as normal. But I like that idea, and I don't think really at that point you're talking about just the number of parking spaces and that a person can take up out there. We do have 2 parking lots. We've got the lower parking lot. We get an agreement with the county. If worst comes to worst, we've got the parking lot above that.
Or both.
Or both. Yeah, both is ideal.
Would people be allowed to get outside the car, or are they going to watch it inside?
I would think so. I think you could, as long as you stay around your car. To me, I always treat that like it's a pod. Yeah. I think it does keep people spread out more. I think we're all safer outdoors than we are anywhere.
If I could just tweak the schedule, I would have to look at the dates, but I feel somewhat uncomfortable getting this from the town, meaning the extra expense. I mean, some of that could go to marketing for my neighbors. Yeah. I'm very sensitive to that. Yeah. However, I think this is a step in the right direction, where instead of canceling something altogether, it's a stepping stone.
Well, don't think,
That will get us-
don't think this is an either or. To me, this is a good idea, and then the marketing, to me, I didn't need to hear that to think that we should be marketing during the winter time. To me, we need to bump that up, and if there's any more important time, it's now to do the marketing that Terry mentioned, and Adam's got this to me, they're separate. We need to invest. I don't want to see empty storefronts, so.
Mayor, can I?
Yes, sir, Glenn.
And it may be a great question or not a great question, but how do I, if I'm in a car, how do I enter in, or how do you control the number of cars coming to the event? Is it a ticketed event? Is it something I have to buy?
I think because he talked about we was going to kind of limit capacity on Main Street with handing out, what he said, his bingo card or something, but we just have to count the cars coming. You know how many parking spaces you're going to be, and when those parking spaces are full, to me, you're at capacity.
Do I have to spend money to get a bingo card?
No, it's bingo's free, but,
What if
Main
you-
Street still be closed?
I was gonna ask, what if you added, just an idea, that you spend money in a local business downtown and your receipt, your sales receipt that you show
I like that.
and there's your ticketed event.
Now we know why we hired Glenn?
I might have Googled it. I think I Googled it while we were all talking for 2 hours.
I think Melinda measured and everything. How many cars? Could you tell us a little bit?
You can fit right at 95 cars in
Wow.
the main courthouse parking lot and the Parsons Table parking lot. And we've already talked about the projection and everything, figuring that out. The mall at Johnson City has been doing this. They just started last week and they're doing it through the month of June on Thursday nights. And what they do is they have an online ticketing that's free, but you have to just go online and register your car. And then when you come into the parking lot, they just have like a manifest where they check off each car, and they have people down there showing them.
I like that. How hard is that to set
It
up?
would be
I wish we
really
had that for wetlands and all that. Yeah, selling pre-advanced tickets is one way to
We
control
have
it.
several ticketing systems in town.
All kinds of apps for that.
Okay.
All kinds.
All right, I think.
That's a good idea.
Pardon, Mayor?
Yes, we have Mr. Dixon here.
Mr. Dixon does.
So could and forgive me if I'm jumping the gun here, but could we withdraw the motion and then bring back another motion to say that we want to move in this direction? Is that, I don't know if that's.
Stephen, are you comfortable with withdrawing your motion? And I'm going to turn that over to Adam since he's,
I'll rescind the motion.
okay.
So then I would move that we proceed with the steps that Melinda has taken to do this drive-in option. And then if we can put a package together as to the cost of the screen and all the cost of materials, then could we then as a board maybe electronically vote on that afterwards? Cannot. It have to be at the next board meeting.
You don't call me, but you can't electronically vote.
Well, I think, what do you want?
I think we should just do it.
Yeah, we don't worry about the cost. The cost here it is what it is. And this
It's a
is
lot less than we were talking about.
Then I move that we proceed with the drive-in theater option and, that we proceed with that option.
This all be tentative to get an agreement with the county to use their parking lot. That's, I don't foresee a problem. Jim?
One issue. You need to decide, you've got to deal with insurance. And this is something that I should have mentioned to you, but when we do these, they usually say subject to town attorney approval of insurance and identification agreement. They've done the identification agreement, but really, I would recommend that you consider making this a town-sponsored event, that you're working with them, and waiving the insurance requirement. It's gonna be a lot different for this event, the way you're setting it up, you got cars involved, but there's no reason you couldn't do that if you choose to, make it a town-sponsored event so that you waive the insurance. That also gives you plenty of justification for picking up expenses like the screen and things like that.
Very good. I like that. Adam, do you feel comfortable with that?
Very much.
All right, very good.
Would the part of Main Street be allowed, what we do is between 8 and about 8:30, we play candy bingo. People sit on Main Street. Now, that's a smaller crowd than actually gets there for the movie because it starts early. But that's still be allowed in this particular agreement, and that they would walk through, so they would park their cars in the courthouse and then come up and play candy bingo in that area.
Can you not?
Yeah, could you, in front of all of them, because there's gonna be a good PA system, you could go up and play bingo, let them stay in their cars and play bingo.
Yeah, let's do that.
Be the,
I like
you can
it.
be the master of ceremony.
Now, the question to me about Main Street is whether or not you want it closed just for the safety of people maybe who might, maybe Ben stays open there and people want to come up there and have a burger or something. So, yeah, we could, it'd be up to the alderman. I'd feel quite comfortable still blocking Main Street. That way you don't have too much traffic trying to turn in there at the courthouse or something. But we could certainly consider continuing to close Main Street.
I would think just close the streets there beside the courthouse and leave Main Street itself open. And maybe add to his motion to just let Melinda take this event, and she can come back to us with a proposal on how to handle it and how much it will cost.
And work with Jeff.
Yeah, she can work with Jeff.
All right, we got a motion to approve the event as a drive-in event, as a town-sponsored event, and closing part of the streets to be determined by staff. Anything else in there, Jim? Is that right?
I just heard somebody suggest that it come back to you all, you're talking about the cost.
No, I don't. I would think we know the cost, but it's tentative, but I don't think if it's off a few $100, we need to approve it. I think we've got a motion to. Adam, did I express your thoughts?
Yes, sir.
And effective July the 11th. So we got a motion on the table. Motion as expressed. Start the event July the 11th. Be a town event, drive-in type event, and staff will determine which streets to close for the safety of the patrons. So I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second from Alderman Callahan. Any other discussion? All right, very good. Madam Recorder, call for the vote, please.
Aye.
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 All right, very good. Thank you, Alderman. I love it. It took us probably an hour and a half, but that was an important vote, to be honest with you. That kind of that's how you get things done. All right, we're going to move on to Brews and Tunes. Melinda, I think, put a good little ride in there, and I think was trying to determine the best location for that. And it's a smaller event. I do like the idea of it being the east side of the courthouse over there, I guess, in front of Texas Burrito. Is that the kind of the idea? We've seen musical events over there before. It's close to our restaurants. It's probably better there than it was over in the courtyard at the International Storytelling Center. So that's my thoughts on that. Alderman, any comments from you all?
Mayor, I began a hero. I may come out the village here. A little concerned about this one. I don't understand moving the event to Friday, and of course the same night as Music on the Square would be. And of course, what the write-up doesn't explain is that is this just for this season, or is this a permanent deal?
I think this season.
It was just a season. Okay, so it's just a seasonal deal. Okay, and then another consideration, I guess, would be again some kind of perimeter that we would need to consider.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's actually probably a little bit more secure there because you only got the one street at the top of the hill there we could block off. But we definitely want to make sure we're following all the guidelines ourselves there. This is a town-involved event.
Make a motion to approve as recommended.
A motion to approve from Alderman Callahan. And do we want to put in, are we leaving the flexibility for Melinda and the team there to decide whether it's in front of the courthouse or the east side of the courthouse? Do you need a decision on that?
I need a decision, but one thing that I did fail to put in there is that if it is on the east side of the courthouse, we'll have to have some type of stage. There's, obviously not a stage or a backdrop or anything there, so we will have to figure out the cost of that and how we will set that up each week.
What's the date so you're going to start us?
It was looking at starting around July 10th.
Now, if it's in front of the courthouse, that involves closing Main Street, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And much harder to control.
it's harder to control, but it's easier to facilitate because the sound, the electricity's there, the backdrop's there.
I like the control part a little bit more than over on the east side, just because it is a confined area. We don't have to really close Main Street per se. And to me, if this up the Alderman, to me, I'd suggest we put it at the east side of the courthouse, and then much more controllable there. And it's just really for this season being a Friday night, and we'll address everything else in the
The only
future.
concern I have with that is because I'm hearing this now about farmers market. You got a lot of merchants on the east side of the courthouse now. You don't have those on the west side. Why can that not be on the west side?
Well,
I think these sides, these are managing. I think these sides, like venue.
Well, to me, I prefer to be near, in a lot of Bristol, their restaurants are setting up tables and stuff outside, and to me, I see this a little bit, you're gonna have people outside. Texas Burrito might benefit a little bit there, so will Barrel House, anybody that stays open. To me, it's, the east side's more advantageous than the west side or something, but, all right, Adam, will you finish expressing yourself there?
Yes.
I think you had a good point there. Okay.
Can we add to that, depending on whether there's an increase between now and then?
I would think any event is gonna be subject to, we could always, it's not
Because
it's not a never-ending thing.
July comes and the numbers are down.
Maybe we could do a comment.
I have less trepidation, especially for public safety. But right now,
I agree with you.
I
Glenn, I see you thinking there.
So, and that's, I guess the hard part is having the events or not, but as far as the protocols or the guidelines, I'm not saying those are the easiest, but it's pretty clear black and white, a lot of it. So yeah, we'll continue to monitor, which we're already doing. And then when you get down to talking about JRT, that was one of the things, probably mostly that we started working on as far as disclaimers and as part of ticketing. We even said if there's a rise, or I can't remember exactly how we worded it, but if it got worse, then it was subject to cancellation.
Absolutely.
As far as the town of Jonesborough did.
what will be the limit to the number of people?
What we generally draw for, I think we do put a limit on that of we've always drawn 100 to 150 there, maybe less than that sometimes.
But that space that you're talking about
It's
is
smaller.
Oh, yeah, the plaza is, much smaller.
Would you feel comfortable with 100?
We could put enough tables and chairs out there, just kind of
Are you gonna put tables and chairs there?
We weren't looking at putting tables and chairs.
Okay.
Sure.
But what we would do, what we were asking is that people would bring their own chairs.
And then how do you enforce the social distancing?
Well, where I was kind of getting at with the tables and chairs idea is, you can only fit 8 people to a table or whatever, and you might be able to space the tables out, so you have a little bit more control over that versus regular.
It's more setup time, but it does make, for me, that gets back to a little pod there. You got a table and a group of 8 around it, and you spread them out 6 foot, and then you don't have quite as much of that issue. And say people have to lug a chair down there, because sometimes it's not the easiest
Where
thing.
are we gonna get the tables and chairs from?
That's the nice thing about the plaza is the tables, chairs, umbrellas,
Already there.
everything's there. So that does present a challenge with those spaces.
They've gotta set them up and take them down every time.
Would there be fencing around it?
There would have to be some type of bicycle fencing each week as well.
Well, if we're gonna have the event, I guess we decide, people bring their own chairs, we just tell everybody to spread out, and for the most part, people will probably spread out by clumps of family. But if we feel more comfortable, we could, we've already made a commitment to, as a town, let's work hard to, have a safe event, like Adam brought up. Well, another commitment we make is, by gosh, just find some tables and spread people out. So if it takes a little bit more effort, we'll do that. So Alderman, that'll be up to you, whether it's people bring their own chairs, or you want to say, hey, we'll set tables up.
I got a stack of tables like this at the farm.
There you go.
It's
See?
a huge stack.
All right.
Chuck, why wouldn't we just stay at the Storytelling Center Plaza? It's controllable, less people, there's like 2 entrances, you block them, you have a control there, and so it's less people.
That could be our third option. That was put in there to kind of move it to one of those spaces, but I'll ask Miss Cobb, because she put that in there. It kind of,
It absolutely could stay where it's at. The idea for moving it was to help with social distancing. We will definitely have to have a smaller crowd where it's at now, but it is a lot more manageable because everything is set up there.
yeah. Okay.
Who would manage it? Who's gonna tell people, no, you can't sit, you're too close? I would.
No, well, you got tables that you actually probably, tables and chairs set up at a safe distance, and they just the tables need to stay where they're at, and the chair.
Yeah, and in the past, people bring their own chairs a lot. So I think that what we would probably have to do is just provide chairs for that area, and once our chairs are filled up, then people can't come in and bring their own chairs.
I like that, yeah.
So we will definitely have to, somewhat rope it off and have it, go to a capacity.
Well, if we start the season there and it's, working out well, and if we think, well, shoot, we can always adjust and allow more in, but it does lower the capacity in that spot, which is probably okay with me. Stephen, I think Stephen had a motion on it. Let me ask him where he's.
I guess from what I'm hearing, the best option would be to do it at its current location.
That's fine, yep.
And do we want to continue that on Sunday?
I think
I think that the people who come to Music on the Square now, and we're disappointed because they're gonna have that whole crowd, and then we're gonna replace it on Friday nights with, again, perception. I'd also like to ask public safety, because whether we like it or not, when alcohol is involved, to me, when it doesn't happen, then I think I'm not a teetotaler, so. Well, how does public safety feel about all of this?
I'm gonna put the county commissioner on the spot. I was just kind of trying to talk to Jim there a little bit, is depending on exactly where we're at down there, you're talking about serving alcohol on county property, depending on where they're at. And
on the east side of the courthouse there.
Well, what you have to look at is the parking spaces attached to the courthouse is county property. So it depends on exactly where you're talking about setting up and having people to be around the courthouse. And then, of course, the other thing is, I would just quickly point out that this Brews and Tunes has been done on Sundays ever since its inception, which I think is why you have smaller crowds. If you're talking about moving that on Friday nights,
different thing.
Then I think your crowds are going to be obviously larger. So the big thing is I was trying to put Jim on the spot instead of me, but I think we'll have to pay very close attention to anything we do serving alcohol wise if you're on the county's property.
I think we're moving back to the plaza. It sounds like we might be doing. Melinda, are you comfortable with Sundays still?
Yes, sir.
All right, Stephen, you got a motion on there. You comfortable with part of your motion being the events on Sundays at the current location and meeting all guidelines? Jim?
There's one other thing you need to take into consideration. If you all do not set a limit on the number of people for this event, it's a public event. Nobody else would have authority to set a limit on it, but you all.
We will, I guess we need to determine how many seats we can get there safely, but I think, it's 75?
I would say you're probably looking more around somewhere in the 50 to 60 mark.
Okay, let's say not to exceed 75, and whatever, and part of the motion is that it has to meet the social distancing guidelines, so if it ends up being 50 or 55, that'll be what we cap it, not to exceed.
I don't, ultimately, anything you decide, our police department needs to be able to enforce. I don't think you can do it that way. I think you're gonna have to set a limit. And I'm sorry, if you don't have that information, I'm sorry, but if you all don't set that limit, they don't have anything that I think is enforceable. And so if they came to me and said, this person refuses to do what we say, I'd be able to tell them, I don't think we've got anything enforceable.
Melinda, what's 60 sound like?
I think it's doable, but I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
until I really measure and figure out, you know, the perimeter, I'm not sure.
Can we table this to July?
Either that, or you could set a limit.
That's what I
And if
said.
it needs to change, they can call a meeting.
That's,
But you can set the limit at 60, and
And
if
if it
she
ends up
finds
being
out it's
different,
50, then she,
yes.
Will the band be up on the top?
I'm sorry.
Will the band be up on the top so that, because that, if you put them underneath there, the 15 feet rule really will.
Yeah, I think the band's gonna have to stay below, because our sound technician and everybody's gonna have to be working together, so I think they're gonna have to stay below.
See, and with that, Chuck, then you've got the 15-foot guideline for performers because they're singing.
Well, we
So
just
the
have to.
closest person you could put is 15 feet from the band.
I would bet you our tables are not that close now to begin with. So we're not too far from being 15 feet away from the performers in the past, because they kind of set back under there out of the sun. And then there's probably at least been 10 to 12 feet there of that gap. So we just got to make sure we're 15 feet away like you're saying. So that's all part of meeting the guidelines. I think we.
I think we're optimistic with 60.
Okay, well, let's say 50 then. Is 50 good? I feel like a auctioneer.
How many tables do you have down there, Melinda?
Craig?
There's probably about 10 tables, but some of them are small, like two to three top tables, and then some of them are large 6 tops.
Well, and
To be honest.
If you're in an outside venue, regardless of the number that's set, it is going to be difficult to control that number. I mean, it's just, you can put a fence up, you can put a barricade up, but then, you know, what happens if 50 people go to the sidewalk on the other side of the street to listen to the band? I mean, it's, you can say you're confining it to an area, but if you've got open music, you obviously figured that out. And again, I'm sure Melinda's done her due diligence, but if you're talking about moving an event that we've done since its inception on Sunday.
No, we're not.
We're doing Sunday, we're back
on
to
Sunday.
Okay, because my other question would have been, is that gonna run into a conflict with any rentals that may start back up at the storytelling center, you know, in the summertime? Who knows? I mean, if the board sets the limit, you know, we can do our best to enforce that, but
no, I think if people are across the
if
street
somebody
listening to it, that's.
refuses to leave, if they're number 51, I'm not gonna speak for the chief, but I'm gonna have a problem with one of our officers arresting number 51 because they won't leave.
Yeah.
And normally, we do not staff up for groups and tunes. We do that with on-duty patrol.
We've not really had any problems down there, and it's usually, like I think Terry was saying, it's kind of an older crowd that, I don't say older, but, you know, moms and dads for the most part, they bring the kids down there, and their dogs and stuff like that, so it's usually a well-controlled,
I
event.
think one of the harder things to control, again, from the guidelines from the governor, it says require social distancing in line. So when people are standing there, you get beer or whatever, my experience when I've been down there is we're right up against each other.
Well, that's what, I think most places now are marking those 6 feet spaces off, so whether the entrance to get into an event, or, you know, in that case, they get a drink or a soda or a popcorn, you just need to make sure that we're marking off 6 feet where people can stand in line 6 feet apart.
How many different serving places are there?
For alcohol, 1.
No, is there just gonna be beer?
That's the way Brews and Tunes typically is, but I don't know. I mean, we could look at adding an option if you all would like.
Because again, if you had more than one line.
And
you
another
gotta
thing that we have to
social
factor in as
distancing.
well is that gonna be comfortable? Is Main Street gonna be comfortable doing that? Because if we're limiting the capacity, you know, that's gonna hinder his beer sales and make it worthwhile for him to pay his staff. And then we also make, you know, money off of the beer sales too, to help cover the cost of the event. So, I mean, it might not be sustainable with a very limited capacity. that we have to
Well,
accommodate
it's
there.
probably gonna be our option there, and I guess he can always decide not to do it, and that's one event we wouldn't be able to do possibly. But when you reduce capacity, and somebody wants to attend, and part of the way you make up that revenue is, I can't quite recall what was charging for a beer there, but if you're charging $5, you charge $6, you try to make it up in another way, sell something different, so if you're gonna have less people shopping your retail spot, you try to make it up by selling some additional items to capture some more revenue. But limiting the capacity, I think sounds like we're gonna need to get to about 50. Let's see, Stephen, you had the motion there to approve the event. Are you comfortable with it, capacity being limited at 50 and on Sunday at the current location? So that's our motion. Anyone got any more comments or got a second for that?
31.
It didn't say in our motion what day you start. It's what the particular.
I would think July 5th.
Yeah, let's get into
First
July.
Sunday.
Okay,
Yeah.
July 5th. All right, so you got the motion, you heard it, and we got addition of July the 5th as the start date. Got a motion, need a second.
Who was the second?
No one yet. All right, anybody got any compromise here, Adam? That's 50 people and a pretty, on the sound, Sundays are blazing hot outdoors.
Melinda, if we had to, if we tabled this and let you meet with everybody between now and the July meeting and get everything firm about the numbers, the limits, the social distancing, and have everything laid out for the next meeting, would you still have enough Sundays if you did the remainder of July, August, maybe half of September?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we could even move it into October, I believe.
Okay. So my recommendation would be, let's table this and come back to the July meeting and get everything identified and then try to move with it.
All right, you heard Adam's thought there. So right now we still have a motion on the floor, but we can recall that. I'll make sure Virginia's not talking down there. So
Yeah, so what's our next meeting, July
13th.
13th?
You all be comfortable with that?
Yeah, I'll rescind the motion.
okay, we're going to item 6E, number 4, Brews and Tunes. We'll move that one to possibly our next meeting after Melinda's going to come back with a game plan for the plaza.
Thank you, Melinda.
All right, now we're down to the July the 4th block party, and I think talked a bit about that our last meeting. I think the few little things changes allow some of the businesses downtown to set a tent up outside their business. Is that right, Melinda?
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, it's pretty similar to what we talked about before. One question, it is a smaller event. I know nobody's wanting to call it Jonesborough Days because this is supposed to be our 50th. But, do you still label it Jonesborough Days? Or you keep it the July the 4th block party? It's more of a measured event. And one, not sure if what's July the 4th, I'll put it out there, and I am not a fan of attracting tens of thousands of people or anything, but one thought is we do a July the 4th block party, we have it measured, and we don't go crazy marketing, we don't have any media reporting about it, we just have enough to support our businesses downtown in our community. If if our board approved a small little fireworks show for July the 4th that nobody knew about, just our residents, that'd be something you could possibly consider part of that event. But just don't try to have people come up there with Last time we had 192 people watching, so we can handle 192 people.
I think we should go with what we had previously approved and have the block party just for the downtown merchants. Let them showcase their stuff from 10 to 8 and not have the main stage and alcohol and movie, and just go with, let our downtown merchants have a day. We can advertise, we can show what they've got. The marketing team can market our merchants and try to help them.
Okay, makes sense. Our Virginia had Terry, I think, said something, a good question.
You have one of those drive movies in there?
It's part of that. It's got a movie proposed in there, I think, along that line, so yeah.
I think we could start the drive-in movie that night.
And I have the Goodbye This 4th of July.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good, that's, seeing we could do that, and then we wouldn't have to pay for the stage, you know, the $8,000 or $10,000 it's gonna cost us to do that music event, which my experience on is how does it spend in the last few, not too many people go over there and sit down and listen to music. At night they did. But then it was the older crowd because of the bands you had were the Beatles and beach music.
All right,
I think a lot of the people that would attend that aren't.
Okay, I think we had Virginia there putting out a good idea, but she was eliminating the main stage area and the alcohol tent. I'm fine if that's not part of it. And Terry's talking about let's continue the movie thing, like the drive-in idea. If someone want to make a motion along that line?
The only question I have is on if we have the drive-in movie that night, if people are actually coming in to the shops, they're gonna be parking in that parking lot.
Yeah.
I
I just thought about that too.
Would they be coming for the
Couldn't we have it
movie?
on Friday night, the movie?
Could use the process
No,
We could possibly do
I
it
didn't follow that.
You know, and advertise and give people, and everybody that comes
You'd have to
10%
close, what
discount
Virginia's
for the
saying is you'd have to
businesses.
close off the parking lot at a certain time for the movie. So, yeah, we would have to figure out a way to do
Because we're
that.
not
or do
talking
it
about
Friday
doing
night.
anything on Friday anyway, are we?
No, not at this point.
So if we had the movie there, and part of what we're doing is handing out, here, come back tomorrow and spend some money, and here's whatever the merchants wanna do.
Yeah.
And then you have that whole crowd aware of it.
I'm gonna have to get the county signed off the parking lot.
Yeah, well, we're talking about doing that anyway, right? To have the movie event, we've gotta get the parking lot, so it would be contingent on that.
As far as the county, is it a committee or is it straight to county commission or is it the county mayor?
Talk to the county mayor, and
Okay.
you know, sometimes they'll take the position, they have authority to do it. Courthouse steps would usually, the county mayor usually do it with sign off. Parking lot.
But not necessarily the parking lot. I can talk to him.
Maybe we'll do the parking lot too. We never voted on that, storytelling or anything like that. But that's just for that.
Okay.
And I can't imagine you wouldn't let it.
So, there'll be some discussion about, you know, they're open for business till 5.
Right, well, the movie wouldn't start until it's dark.
Right, if cars don't move out of the parking lot, you have to deal with that. So they'll have to figure that, but we can work with it.
So can Melinda.
All right, let me catch up. I think these gentlemen have had a good conversation down here, Virginia and Stephen. Let me hear what Glenn has to say about this. Did y'all said something about, I heard you talking about parking.
Sorry.
About what we were talking about.
I heard, yeah.
Right, I'm gonna, both myself and Melinda can check with the county mayor on the parking lot itself, on what permissions we need, whether it's the county mayor or it's the county commission.
Okay.
We will establish the authority over the parking lot and approvals.
So you weren't, okay, we're trying to think, is that an issue having the movie? Because during the movie, you have cars parking there, and that's normally area, but I guess it'd be a little bit later. Maybe the shopping on Main Street by that time would probably be dying down, possibly. So
I
maybe
think we would
it's-
just have signage up and let people know that that parking lot's gotta be cleared
Right.
out by like a certain time. So if the movie's gonna start, the parking lot's gotta be cleared out by, 7:45 or 8 o'clock.
Because your movies don't start till what?
I would think 9.
Okay, so that's maybe a little less of an issue. Yeah, so long as everybody knows, yes, unless you're staying for the movie and you bought a ticket, if we sell a ticket, then, yeah, you need to exit. And yeah, okay, I like that. All right, so I guess if we had a motion, it would read to approve our block party event, excluding the main stage area and alcohol tent. And after staff works with the county, confirming all that on the parking lot, we would have our movie, and Melinda and them would make sure that that parking lot is empty as much as possible on July the 5th.
The third would be the movie and the fourth would be the block.
Okay, yes, so the movie would be on the 3rd, on the Friday.
Can we have a little bit of flexibility to kind of work with staff to kind of figure out what would be best to do the movie on the 3rd or the 4th? And
Yes.
what we can work out?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so one of those 2 days. All right, Alderman, you heard the description of a motion. Unless someone will make a motion on that?
So moved.
All right, motion to approve from Alderman Causey,
Second.
second from Alderman Countermine. No more discussion, call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Aye.
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 All right, thank you, Alderman. All right, we're gonna move along to Parks and Recreation, a little bit more simple here, the opening. I thought we was already opening, but Alderman, you see that there? Matt's got in his motion to have it reopened by Monday the 15th. All right, what is that, Craig? He's shaking his head down there.
That kind of changed this morning, Mayor. We got an email from Little League that stated they had decided to cancel their 2020 season, so it's a moot point at this point on Little League. I think we can still include the adult softball league.
Right.
but Little League has canceled their season for 2020.
So to me, it's just making sure our parks are open. If we've got, one part I had in here about the basketball courts to be blocked off because it's a contact sport. Can you not have a sign that just says for individual shootings, okay? If a guy wants to come down and shoot a basketball, can you do it?
Mayor, again, as the board, you can do what you want to.
Well, if I was going to change anything on that recommendation.
What the guidelines say is any sport in which you could have contact in at this point is kind of not allowed. So that's the reason that the basketball court had been closed, because it's it's impossible to play basketball without contact.
All right, I'm not going down on a sword for it, but you could easily add in there, you can, for individual play only, but, I hate the thought of a guy taking his kid down there to shoot a basketball and can't do it. That's up to the Alderman. All right, Alderman, what do you say about this recommendation here?
So the Little League part of it's gone.
Yes, sir. And that's an action they took. They
Right.
decided to cancel the
Matt told
season
me
and
that they-
sent Matt an email
They
this
do that.
morning.
I'll move to approve that.
Okay, got a motion to approve the Park and Recreation reopening plan.
Second.
Second from Alderman Callahan. Any other discussion? All right, call the vote, Madam Recorder.
Aye.
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 All right, motion carried. Thank you, Alderman. All right, now we're getting the JRT USO show. We discussed that at our last meeting. Is any other questions? Right now, you got the recommendation is to approval of the proposal and the memorandum of understanding as presented. And I think it's a well-written, very thorough, and Glenn stuck to his guns right there, making sure.
Thank you, Glenn. Oh, you're welcome.
Yep.
So moved.
Got a motion to approve from Alderman Causey. Second from Alderman Countermine. All right, some conversation there, Adam?
No, sir, I was just going to move.
All right, all right. Going too fast now for me. Call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Aye.
All right, that was our old business. Now we're moving into our new business. All right, thank you, Alderman. I think you all did really, really good. So, thank you. All right, now we're discussion of possible action concerning the first reading of an ordinance rezoning property at 152 Headtown Road from R1, which is low density residential, to B3 arterial business, and R1 low density residential to B6 corridor. Got a nice little potential commercial development out there. Be great for the town of Jonesborough. Be one of the first. Should I say the name?
Oh, it's in there. It's
Okay,
in the-
Weigels? Weigels? Yeah, Weigels? Are you here from Weigels?
Yes.
You mind come introduce yourself to us?
Sure.
I used to stop in there all the time when I traveled through Knoxville. One of the best run.
Should we say the name?
Yes. That's fine. My name is Melissa Pegler. I work in real estate development for Waggles, and we are looking at the site on Headtown Road for development. We're looking at the total property. A portion of it would be for a new convenience store. We're moving into the Tri-Cities. We have one in Kingsport now, and we have one going up in Bristol. Just trying to move our brand over into this area. And so we're excited about this site. We think it has some really good potential. I know it has some challenges with the topography and drainage and stormwater and maybe some traffic challenges, but we think we can work through them. So.
I think it's a great location. You do great. I just wish we were the first one. You got into Kingsport first. Yeah.
Well, I heard your store might be a little bit bigger, just slightly.
All right. I think we've got 30-some thousand cars coming through there, so you couldn't. I don't think you could. That's a home run intersection. So we're glad to have you here.
Yeah.
Mayor, if I can brag, one of the conversations we had was there's actually a Mr. Weigel.
Yes.
That actually is familiar with our zoning.
Yes.
So I was very impressed. Usually you get Mr. McDonald for McDonald's. There's usually not a Mr. McDonald.
Yeah.
So I was very impressed with him paying attention to Jonesborough and our zoning ordinance.
Yes, he is very active and involved in the company still. It's a family-owned company, and he goes out once a week and goes to all the stores and makes sure it meets his brand and what he wants to see down there. So.
And it went before the Planning Commission on May 19th, and they recommended approval to the Board of Mayor and Alderman.
All right, very good. Alderman, do we have a motion or anything there? Motion to approve from Alderman Causey. Second from Alderman Calhoun. That's right. Any other discussion? All right, call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Motion carried. Thank you. All right, now we're down to discussion of possible action concerning approval of a resolution adopting a continuance budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020. Something you gotta do. Motion to approve from Alderman Dixon.
Second.
Second from Alderman Callahan. Any discussion? Call for the vote, Madam Recorder. Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Motion carried. Last thing on the, one of the last things on here, discussion of possible action concerning approval of first reading of the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget amendments for the general, drug, and solid waste funds. See what you have in front of you there. I think our staff did a great job showing some discipline. Puts us in a comfortable position, but we're not throwing around dollars or anything. Motion to approve from Alderman Callahan.
Second.
Second from Alderman Callahan. Any discussion, Alderman? All right. Call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Aye.
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 All right. Motion carried. All right. Last thing on here, just a discussion from Public Safety Director Ford. Craig, I know it's late. You don't have to spend a ton of time on there. I just want to point out you did a great job getting some information to the alderman, some good information in there talking about law enforcement and what we do here in Jonesborough. I've been bragging on our police officers to a lot of people. We've got a great group. Just give a little update on what's going on there in public safety.
Well, one of the things too, Mayor, that I did want to correct, because you did read, or you did say correctly what we had said earlier, with respect to neck restraint or constraint. The state of Tennessee several years ago basically banned the use of any chokeholds. What they did say was they could use the vascular neck restraint, which is a holder technique, if it's taught in the recruit academy and if it's retaught on an annual basis. So they in effect outlawed it because it's not taught in the academy at this point. So it's not even in our policy as prohibited because it's not taught. We don't teach, so there's no need to prohibit something they can't use to begin with. And I did want to say, we had a lot of people after the parade that came through. We kind of mustered together back behind the courthouse, and so many people came out there and wanted to shake our hands and thank us for, being there and so on and so forth. And, and at the risk, a lot of times, we're told the Lord despises a prideful heart, and so a lot of times you try not to toot your own horn. But to give you an example, the letter that you held up earlier tonight with the graduation of these kids from Midway, I sent this board a memo back in December that basically outlined how many more children that we sponsored here for Shop with a Cop than what Rural Metro Nashville PD did. That Shop with a Cop program is basically for elementary age children. And so, a couple in our office, and Major Rice was very instrumental in this. He decided, what about these kids at Midway that have problems for whatever reason? A lot of times it's not their own problems, and we reached out to them, and we sponsored several of those kids up there, and a lot of times, again, they're low income. We took a small group of those kids and took them shopping. One kid bought a watch, and as soon as he paid for it, he put it on, and he wanted everybody to see it. One kid bought camo, and he wanted to go change and put that on and wear it out. We came up here, Mike, I believe, here at Pizza Plus is always so good to the police department. He charges us $100 to bring the kids up there and then turn around and give us a $100 donation. One of the teenage young ladies that was there couldn't have weighed 90 pounds soaking wet. And she made 8, 9, 10 trips back to the food bar. And it's like, where is this kid putting this? But so help me, she said pizza was her favorite food, and it's the first time she'd ever eaten pizza in a restaurant. We don't think about that stuff. This situation at Midway, it got to the point that I was avoiding going into the police department because every time I went in there, Matt Rice was wanting more money. When the schools closed down, we fed kids and fed kids and fed kids from up there on the police officers over here taking up money to do that. We took up money and bought a kid a classroom because his dad said he was worthless, would never amount to anything, and let the school system pay for it. We bought the kid a classroom because his daddy said he wouldn't do it. And we had inscribed inside that classroom, make right choices.
Yeah.
We hope he sees that. They took up money to help buy these kids caps and gowns so they could graduate. Those things we take for granted. And that's our officers that did that. Our officers, most of them are parents themselves. Most of them live in this community. You see the people that you may run into them on the street in the job, or you're going to run into them in the grocery store and places like that on the weekend. One of the things we say all the time is be better. Be better. It's always the culture. but it's always leadership. And that's one of the reasons why I'm silver-tongued Ron Street into coming back to the PD. I'm sure he'll never buy a used car off of me, but it's that strong leadership at the top that sets the tone. And when you look at what went on in Minneapolis, the bottom line to that is, that guy was using a restraint that's not taught in any academy that I'm aware of, number one. Number two, I fault the three other officers that stood there and let that happen and not intervening more than I did this guy. And then going back to that leadership issue, I fault that chief. I fault him more than any other than that, because I can assure you, as I'm standing here in front of you tonight, there would not be an officer that worked for Jonesborough PD that had 17 or 18 chances. Absolutely. He had 15 or 16 more than he would have gotten from me, because we don't employ people like that here. I tell our officers a lot, and I know City Street does the same thing. Trust is the easiest thing in the world to lose, and it is the hardest thing in the world to gain back. And one of the things I did, and Alderman Countermine, you know this, and Virginia, you do as well, because you were an employee here and are an alderman now. But when I came back here in '99, it was for the very reason of changing the culture with the Jonesborough Police Department and regaining the public trust. And I worked my tail off for Jonesborough PD to regain the public trust. And first and foremost, I still believe one of the biggest reasons why I got into law enforcement is my dad instilled in me, one man truly can make a difference in their neighborhood. And that's what I have tried hard to do. I've tried hard to get that trust back. We encourage our officers, when you're patrolling through neighborhoods and you see people out, stop and talk to them. Get to know those people that you're serving. Work to gain that trust with them. And it bothers me, it breaks my heart for this country when you see actions today like defunding the police department. What they're doing by doing things like that is those who are already at greater risk in lower income and underserved areas, and the elderly are putting them at an even greater risk. And I would just finish by saying this. I can assure you that not just in Jonesborough, but all across this country, no one despises a bad cop any more than a good cop.
Absolutely. Thanks, Craig. I know our aldermen and our town residents are thankful for the quality of people we have here in our public safety force, whether it's fire, our police. And if I was to say anything to Jonathan, there's a great story there, because I've given out at least three Employee of the Month awards to Hannah Fleming. Great story there on what she did for a person that could have been a trouble incident, and she de-escalated that with her heart. Same thing with the officers that saved Mr. Gray, pulled him out of a burning house. And Dennis Higgins, I know he won an Employee of the Month, and it's because of his relationship with the public. There's a very nice story people would love to hear too, in addition to the other.
Well, I sincerely believe, Mayor, that leaders are born. I know you can develop leadership skills in people, but many people that have heard me say this so many times over the years, we're kind of like the Marines. We're looking for a few good men and women. If you come in to an interview with me and you're 21 years old or 22 years old, and you're a jerk or you have a bad attitude about you, and I can see that, you've had 21 years to be a jerk. I can't change that. But I can assure you, if they come in and they have the right kind of attitude and they have a servant's heart and they want to work and they've got a great personality, myself and certainly this man right here can train them to be good police officers. And you look for that diligently when you're interviewing for these positions. And we're very diligent in that background check that we do on them as well.
Thanks, Greg. You know what you look for in somebody right there, really, it's the same thing that I would look for hiring somebody to be a salesperson or not. But the difference is just good person that you're wanting to hire, the good person I'm wanting to hire, the difference is my guy is not going to put on a ballistic vest to protect himself every day. And that's just something else to find these young men and women willing to do that. When they can be doing other things, it's really, they've got to have a heart for it. And I'm certainly appreciative of what all you all do and all of our officers.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and I know that police and fire both here certainly appreciate the support they get from the board.
Thank you, Greg. Alderman, you got anything? All right. Thank you all, I guess. Unless you all want to have a slumber party.
Mayor, can I conclude one thing?
Yes.
Just a tail end of Tennessee's 20 safest cities of 2020, according to SafeWise, which is basically based on FBI's most recent data on violent crimes and property crimes. So top 20 cities, Jonesborough is one of them.
Wow.
In Tennessee. So I just wanted to conclude on that.
You should have brought that news out during prime time. That's between 8 and 9 o'clock.
I'm thinking I need a note to my wife that I'm actually here at a meeting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not a call.
Now meeting.